It's week 2 of our G1 preview. It's the most wonderful time of the year. And we have the best guest we can get. We have Chris Samsa from the Sport of Pro Wrestling to break it all down. Plus, we'll talk Fantasticamania, President Tanahashi's new committee, take your questions, talk about El Desperado taking time off. There's a lot to do, so let's get to it. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome once again to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. Chris, we're thrilled to have you with us. Jeremy, it's good to see you. I am itching for this tournament to start. I'm so fired up.
There's a lot going on. I'm super happy to have Chris. Chris, you have done a ton of work this year with your website. And I want to, first off, thank you for all the work that you've done there. But I also want to just welcome you and give you the floor to tell everybody what you've done with this Sport of Pro Wrestling website.
Yeah, sure. Oh, thank you for having me. As always, good to talk to you guys. Yeah, let's do the pitch right off the bat, right? G1.sportofprowrestling.com. Enter the contest. It's a really wonderful interface to mess around with the results of the tournament. It's a really wonderful contest that we're running. 500 plus completed brackets. I'm watching brackets come in as we speak. I think we're going to get to 600, 650 by the time the tournament begins in about 35 hours. Yeah. So yeah, it's the hard work of my Sport of Pro Wrestling partner, Jeremy Sexton. He did all the coding. He's the guy that's going to bring all my visions to life in regards to this website. So so g1.sportofprowrestling.com. It's, get involved with the community. We're going to talk about it on Twitter. We're going to talk about it wherever we get a chance. I'm going to share percentage of picks for every match with the commentary team, stuff like that. Like, it's just going to be wonderful. And it gives you a little peek as to what we've got building over here at sportofprowrestling.com. So it's really an elegant interface. It is exactly what I would have wanted to do if I could do it myself. But we brought in another passionate person for things like this, and he crushed it. And I'm so excited to see where we can go with it. But yeah, join the contest, g1.sportofprowrestling.com, and then follow along. You can follow along. Then you have a stake in every match. That's why gamblers gamble, right? So they can watch sports that don't actually care about. Like, they can watch sports so they don't care about, to see if they can make $4 on their parlay, right? That's basically what this is.
For pro wrestling, right?
Sort of.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, in a way, you're picking your team. If you've got your lineup and you're like, hey, this is the one that's going to net me, like, daily fantasy. It's basically like daily fantasy.
Ultimately, what you're doing, though, is we decided, we had some decisions to make. We really wanted people to book out the whole tournament, right? And not just like pick, you think Shingo's going to win a lot of matches, so you just pick Shingo across the board, right? You could absolutely do that in other contests, ones on Google Sheets or whatever. With ours, who you pick throughout the tournament informs who goes to the knockout stage, including all known tiebreakers. So as the tournament's going on, let me tell you, this is going to be a tool that I use to set up the tiebreakers, because I think we got them all. So like, as the tournament starts to tail out, I'm going to be using literally this exact feature of the website to like fantasy book the last couple of days to give the tiebreaker scenarios at the end of the tournament. So I'm thrilled that that's off my plate. We've done it on the front end. I don't have to do that.
I have to tell you, I did this on a desktop, and I was able to, like, real time watch as the picks would compile on the side of the screen, and it was incredibly gratifying, because you could toggle back and forth and see, like, oh, if it did that, that math doesn't work, and like, if you have in mind who your guys are going to be at the end, right? This is fantastic. The user interface, the font, the lines, the kerning, everything. I'm a nerd for this stuff. And I was just looking at it like, man, he could get paid for that.
There's a pitch meeting on the books. I'll tell you that.
So your lips to God's ears, Jeremy. That's
say it louder.
Get paid for this work
Tell
because
your friend.
it is money worth. It is a project worth spending money on.
We have some plans to get paid in a couple of different ways, so we're hopeful.
Absolutely a labor of love that it looks like, and sometimes when a labor of love reflects outwardly, I hope that you have not gotten a whole lot of bad feedback, because this is exactly what I would dream of, in a lot of ways when it comes to this stuff. And you've grown from like basic websites to this, and I'm just like, I tip my cap to you.
It's gonna be cool. This is cool. This is a cool element. We knew we needed to do this. You have to make an account to sign up for the contest. That account will come in handy in later times, I promise. Probably around the time Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty rolls around, that account's going to be real handy for some people. So keep it in mind.
And I've been dying to do it. Speaking of Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty, I am going to be there. I just found out I will indeed be traveling to Tokyo, Japan. So we will be doing, speaking of strong style hits, live from Tokyo there. I'm going to be going to both nights, and then I will be seeing as many wrestling shows as I can possibly cram into a 24-hour daily cycle
in Tokyo.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
I'm going to try to go. Yeah, I'm thrilled. We got the fan club thing the other night, and we were over there clicking, and then when it came up, I know it sold out. The early, the front rows
first
and all that stuff.
Right?
Yeah. We ended up getting rows 3 through 6. So somewhere in there, I will be each night.
That's not a bad spot to be.
Oh man, I'm really excited about going, and we've got some people already putting over the whole website. Flaming Shark says the website was very nice, and with 2 blocks of 10 plus, the new Sport of Pro Wrestling site, this is making the G1 feel special this year. And Larry Sternshine is finishing it tonight, he says. And hello, Colin, we're glad you're here with us as well. Dunstan, all you guys, we're glad you're with us.
Okay, so that makes a question for me. What is the deadline to enter, Chris?
Deadline to enter is 3 a.m. my time, so Chicago time. So basically, bell time of the first G1 show on Saturday morning. I think it's Saturday morning for everyone in the U.S.
Yes.
Roster are automated to lock on the website.
You will not be able to enter, and if you do, we're probably just going to delete it. But I have to ask my partner if he has that set up to shut it down. But the site will then transition to being the leaderboard, and then you can obviously see your own picks. The site will then tell you which picks you got right and wrong, calculate your points. You'll be able to search yourself on the leaderboard and stuff like that. So we've got quite a few brackets that are incomplete but have been started, so I'm hopeful that all those get finished. But we have quite the base right now.
Is there, I don't know if this is even possible, but will it have a capacity to tell you the maximum amount of points that you can reach it, like with your brackets right now?
I have asked for that feature, so yes, I'm hopeful. I don't know. Yeah. I honestly,
what I'm saying, right?
Yes, I do. Because then you can see, can I win? Right? Yes. Yeah. I will see how far up the queue that has been. So, peek under the hood. We launched this thing without doing anything about how we're gonna. We launched the input before we finished the
Bill
output.
O'Reilly, fuck it, we'll do it live.
I mean, it's ready to go. There's a feature list that we know we want to add. I think most of that's already made it onto the actual feature list, but I have not seen the final product that the users will see. I will see that when it goes live at about 3 a.m. that day. Okay. So I'm right there with you guys. But yes, that was something, because that's something that I've done for the G1, right? In those weird years, 22, 23, when guys were off cycle, I would always do max points. And, so I totally get where you're coming from with wanting to know that. You will be able to see who everyone picked for their block winner and the winner of the tournament.
That was something that I think I saw when I entered,
but
it was like there was no access to it afterwards.
Got it. Yeah.
Like I couldn't look at it.
That will be a part of the leaderboard. You'll see this person, this username has this many points, and then they've picked this person to win A block, this person to win B block, and then you can see all their brackets too. But I will ask about the calculation. I'm hopeful. If not, honestly, it might pop up mid tournament. Because what we're doing is we're using the G1 as kind of, obviously our biggest stress test on whether or not our database, which has all these stats and info pieces, as well as the contest kind of side of things, can add in other tournaments, right? Like we want to be able to do any of the New Japan tournaments, Continental Classic, the N1, World Tag League. Fuck it, let's do World Tag League, right? Like let's get people engaged in some of this stuff that they usually ignore. So, so all those features, anything that people are asking for, like most of the time the answer is just yeah, sure, we can figure that out. So and it'll be ever evolving too, because we really want to be the most modern, best pro wrestling website, for this type of thing. And so far I think we've got a pretty good stronghold on that.
Already more technologically advanced than the current njpw1972.com. So there you have it.
It might.
They're at a medium level of difficulty right now.
All right. So
I see what you did there.
Make sure you get your ballots, and that's what again, g1.sportofprowrestling.com, correct?
Yes, that's the one.
Make sure you get your ballots in. Let's
talk about the real thing now.
Talk about the tournament. This is there is so much to look forward to in this, and now we do have some news to get into before we get to the G1 itself. Now, the one that most people have already seen, Jake Lee is officially part of the War Dogs now, and that kind of affected the way I filled out mine anyway for this, because I had to think, oh, okay, so I need to take this dude a little more seriously. He had his match at a recent Noah show, the Noah pay-per-view, and Ghetto came out. There you see the graphic there on the YouTube, and for the folks listening as a podcast, Ghetto came out and presented him with a War Dogs t-shirt, and he accepted it. Then picked up the microphone, said in English, "Goodbye, Noah." And when LJ Cleary wanted a little bit of clarification, he got chokeslammed. So that was the end. We already announced that he was dumping the good-looking guys, but this was a much more emphatic one here, where he actually said goodbye to Noah. So Jake Lee coming over as official member of the War Dogs, and so that's coming up. In your thoughts on this one, people seem divided on Jake in a lot of ways. I find him interesting. I understand that he's not the world beater as far as having the greatest matches in history, but I do find something charismatic about the guy. So I'm all for fresh matches. I'm all for fresh matches.
My monitor's out.
So I don't know. So I take it you're on the side that you'd rather not be seeing a lot of Jake Lee matches.
Jake Lee should get a medal for failing upward.
Okay.
Because he has now failed upward out of All Japan, and then failed in All Japan, and then failed upward to Noah, and has now failed upward from Noah to New Japan. So, give the man... And this is not kayfabe. We're not talking about titles failing upward, right? Where you lose the Never title and you're the guy that comes out for the IWGP. We're talking about actual career upward failure. And you know what? More power to him. He's tall. I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Jake Lee. I find him to be boring. Yeah, that's the right. His quote from the press conference really sums him up. "I recently betrayed my friends and then said goodbye to Noah. It is not only Noah. Maybe it would be better to say that I betrayed AJPW as well. I'm saying goodbye. I'm a traitor and a cheater. I'm a coward. And in the liarman spirit, I pledge to fight unfairly." Thank you, Jake Lee, for explaining pro wrestling heels like I'm 5. And then I'm hearing that he's one of the best promos in Japanese pro wrestling.
I don't think I've said that.
No, not you. It's out there. You'll find it. You'll find it. Somebody of prominence said it just a couple hours ago. So I'm hearing. I'm hearing.
I haven't heard any radio shows from last night.
It's out there. You'll see it. I'll send you a link. I read the quote and I was like, "Hey pal, give me more. You got to give me more than that. You're a War Dog now." And then you've got Gabe Kidd, who's coming out and saying he had 17 highballs and he's feeling good and he really wants the trophy. And that's a War Dog, a little scumbag, slimy dude, big scumbag, big slimy dude. those two guys, I don't see them in the same universe.
Yeah, it does seem to be. Here's the thing about him in the War Dog specifically. I don't have a problem with Jake as a heel. And like I said, there's something kind of oddly captivating about him for me anyway. And that's just all subjective and stuff. But he's not violent. And the War Dogs are really violent. Like that's the entire point of the War Dogs. They are unusually violent. Even for that's the story they're telling is even for Bullet Club guys. These guys are unusually violent. I get none of that from Jake Lee. So that's a bit of a square peg in a round hole there for me on that. It's just I just don't see him fighting up into the aisles and bloodying somebody up and going into the bleachers and taking a tumble down them. Whereas Gabe Kidd, that's Tuesday.
I'm still like, it shouldn't be a shock to anyone. He was tagging with Bullet Club like a month ago.
No,
so
I'm not saying that, but
not
being
none
allied,
of it's shocking. Yeah,
but I mean, it's just like I look at it and I'm like, well, it's not like us, but there's a conversation out there. Jake Lee joined Bullet Club. Like, oh my gosh, I'm like, if you're paying attention, you knew that this was kind of in the air.
I get reverse Kenta vibes though.
Sure.
I think this is a G1 story.
Yeah.
Maybe Jake's around. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, maybe Jake's New Japan now, right?
I think he will be consequential before Wrestle Kingdom, but by the time Wrestle Kingdom comes around, he'll probably be de-emphasized.
Well, I think. Well, but by reverse Kensai, I mean like he's now joined Bullet Club, and I think something will happen on that G1 final. I think that's the arc. That's just my juju. I think he's going to end up doing something different than being in the War Dogs. He's such a weird fit for the War Dogs.
Yeah.
So that's my vibe. I don't know anything, but like that was a great story with Kenta when they did it as a heel turn. I don't know if it would necessarily be a face turn because who knows, right? I don't see him getting over to that level where you want to like go that far, but I do see something happening maybe on the G1 final where he's no longer in Bullet Club.
Okay.
I've just got my Spidey sense out on that.
Sure.
Shark has a couple of comments about him I want to bring up. He just says, I mean, clearly there's something all these companies see in Jake, but I can't really say much. Maybe Ghetto found his plan to get people on board with David Finlay by putting Jake Lee next to him. Chris brings up a good point that he's not necessarily permanently in War Dogs, that they have done stuff like that. I mean, Robbie Eagles came in as a member of Bullet Club, didn't like it, left. Kenta came in as what looked like Hantai didn't like it, and left and turned on Shibata famously and things. So he does do these little mini stories where someone comes in with a group and then of course, I mean, the biggest one is everyone in the world knew that Jay White was not Chaos.
Oh, right.
We were just waiting for the knife to go in. So that was, there could be something like that. Absolutely.
I had mentioned something previous that like Jake Lee is what I envision what Sonata would be like if he had joined Bullet Club, where it's just like that kind of personality just doesn't fit. And it's kind of more quiet and pensive. And it's like, that's not what a Bullet Club member is. So I'm curious about that. But I think there's something to the thread of Naito and Jake Lee, and that's a really good subplot for the fall. And I'm just like, everything feels like it's nosediving to that for me. So I could see Jake Lee being totally done with Bullet Club after he got what he wanted out of it, which was some type of opportunity at a top guy.
Well, before all this happened, I was saying that my lock of the tournament was Jake Lee's beating Tetsuya Naito. They're going to run it back then at Ryogoku. Right. And then you've got, Noah and, Jake Lee's fans and coming, filling Ryogoku in October, right?
Yeah.
Now, if Jake Lee is a New Japan signed talent, I don't know that that's as big of a lock anymore. Because now they can build him or put him in position where they think he's going to be without needing to cater to a partner promotion. So
it's also like the Bronx and Reed or the Jonah aspect when you had with Okada.
When he was an outsider.
Right. And then they come in, but there wasn't necessarily for sure he was going to stay or go at the time.
Right.
But they put him at his top peak at that moment and then just kind of downshifted him down the roster depending on where his viability ended up being.
Sure.
And I totally see that here with Naito too, where they go with him there. And then I don't see him beating Naito.
No,
but after that point on, you can kind of settle him into the roster, given that he's had the cloud of a main event opportunity. And that just kind of felt like what they were doing in 2024, given that it has just been, frankly, a little bland at the main event level with what they've got going on, and they haven't done enough to really electrify who they've had at a top level. Like, everybody's pretty much stayed in their role in the 2024 mythology. Like, there hasn't been a huge amount of curveballs, so this is that moment within the year. And
we're blessed with Sonata versus Jake Lee on night 1, so get your excitement up.
That's one. Yeah, I mean, somehow Sonata manages to suck charisma away from whoever he's wrestling. Like, the person becomes less interesting when they're wrestling Sonata, so that could be a real black hole there in that match.
I
think in the middle of that card.
I'm pretty sure it's like third from the top. So
it is. There are 10 matches, and it's a big card match.
It's fourth from the top.
Yes.
There you
go. I have the lineup here. Yeah.
That'll be a great time.
There will be a dialogue. There will be a dialogue about
that. It will be a match that happens where 63% of people have picked Jake Lee to win that match.
Yeah. So. The only other thing, storyline wise, I did want to mention before we go on, we're going to break down each participant in the G1 here. We're going to get right into it. But Hiroshi Tanahashi has himself a new committee. This was a committee that has been announced for storyline purposes. This is mostly a kayfabe thing, this committee. And the only reason I really want to bring it up is just the timing of its announcement. Just before the G1, a G1 that has a couple of House of Torture guys in it, when part of the 10-point plan was to start curbing some of this interference. I think this committee might end up being, in a kayfabe way, put into play during this to either curb House of Torture or something similar to that. So this new committee for storyline purposes here: Yuji Nagata, Jushin Liger, former referee Tiger Hattori, which is interesting. It's a man that's been living in New York City for decades and still doesn't speak English, which is always my favorite anecdote about Tiger Hattori. Can't speak English, lived in New York for years, and actually would commute to Japan for tours. Like he was a foreign wrestler or something. But interesting note about Tiger. And then Naoki Sugabayashi, he's the NJPW chairman, and Hitoshi Matsumoto, the NJPW representative director. So all this is starting to feel like those old NWA championship committees who would come down from on high and make little rulings that would either reverse something that a heel had done, or get the big showdown going, order the match, that type of stuff. So now he has a storyline group, Tanahashi does, that can make announcements and do bidding, and they're all kind of baby faces. So this feels like one of those deals where perhaps House of Torture is going to do something particularly dastardly and get themselves banned from the buildings or something like that. But the timing of its announcement feels like it's G1 related.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. That feels like a subtlety hammer that is not common in New Japan, right? They let subtlety be subtlety, typically. I love the concept of this, right? Like, we've always talked about the IWGP committee, and it's always been this Oz in the cloud, right? And now we know who it is, and they're people that make sense. There's a part of my same spidey sense is tingling that it's almost a way for them to tell people that there are multiple people in the room making decisions about what's happening in the ring, without telling people that there are multiple people in the room making decisions based on about what happens in the ring. So I don't know that. But again, that's just that I have this hypothesis that there are more people than everyone always says Gato when they're trying to talk about the booker of New Japan. Part of me feels
suddenly Tanahashi is making all the decisions.
Well, I don't think it's that, right? I don't think Tanahashi is the booker, but I do think that it is a more collaborative process than people realize. And I think that we now have some names that have been involved in, probably the last 3 to 6 months. Pretty heavily. It is my bet. I know that Gato's still the one telling everyone what the plan is, but I don't think he's making the plan exclusively by himself.
Got it. I apologize. I meant more that people would cast a narrative that it was Tanahashi and Tanahashi alone.
Oh, well, people
on the internet make all these decisions.
whenever I have anything about Tanahashi on my Twitter, someone asks, like, is he the real president? And all I can respond is he is the actual president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, yeah. I don't know what he does. I don't know if he's a figurehead. Yes. Like, I just know that his actual work title is president and wrestler. But like, he is the president of the company. Shrug. Like, in pro wrestling, what does that ever mean? I don't know. Yeah. Could mean anything. Yeah. We make this shit up as we go.
Sit behind a desk and sign papers? Probably.
He still looks good in a suit.
He does.
So he still looks good in his gear, but whatever.
The only other note, El Desperado has a match against Chris Brooks on a DDT show coming up on the 22nd. After that, he announced he's going to be taking a few months off. Of course, this would be the time for a junior heavyweight to do something like that. The next 6 weeks or so is taken up with the G1, and then it sounds like he's taking a little bit of an extended time. Like I said, this is during the G1, all the emphasis is on the heavyweights anyway. The junior heavyweights are usually guys filling in the prelim tags at this stage, but for Desperado, I just think, man, his back is probably hurting from helping to carry the company for the first 6 months of 2024, which he really has. It's been he and Naito, I think, really are the two keystones for New Japan. And maybe he's a little beat up. Maybe he has other project that he wants to get into. He seems, from his socials, like a guy that's interested in a lot of things besides pro wrestling. Anyway, it looks like we might be without Despe for a little bit as the heavyweights go through their major tournament.
I'm happy to see that these guys are getting an opportunity to rest their bodies, because they've been going pretty hard. And, we've heard the dialogue from some of these guys like ELP, how some of the schedule can be pretty brutal on them. But it's pretty curious that Desperado made such a public declaration of taking time off. I hope everything's fine. I hope everything is made clear come the 22nd. He seems, might just be like a mental health thing where it's just like, you know what, I'm not feeling it. I gotta get right, and this is what I'm gonna do. And if that's the case, good on everybody involved to make sure that they have the opportunity to be at their best when they're in the ring, because it's a dangerous business, man.
Yeah, and he has through the whole pandemic, right? Starting really in 2020, El Desperado has not stopped. He's been a featured act in New Japan Pro Wrestling in one way or another pretty much that entire time, from best of Super Juniors 2020 and maybe even a little before that to now. Plus, all of his indie bookings, all of his deathmatch stuff. Like, he's not exclusive to New Japan by any means. So he's been a busy man. So good on him for taking some time off. I truly don't think that that's why they changed the title off over to Dookie. But it may have had something to do with it. Or Desperado saw a lane, right? He was like, oh, I'm not the champ anymore. We don't have a tournament coming up. I'm not really involved in anything right now. Like, I'm gonna take a little time. So, and good on him. Always, all we got is time. So take it when you can.
All right. So with that said, we're going to go into the G1 Climax now. Let's take a look at who's in this tournament, how we think they're going to do, and what the storylines could be for these people. Now, Tetsuya Naito already has a lot to do. He's the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion again. Therefore, he's not winning the thing, right? I mean, we all agree that this whole tournament is about creating the Tokyo Dome main event. You can't really have it without Naito at this stage for New Japan. Naito is far and away the biggest draw, the biggest star currently going. So we said a while ago, Naito would either have to be the champion or he was going to have to win the G1. Mm-hmm. Naito got the title back from Moxley. He's going to the Dome as it stands right now. I don't see them taking it off of him before then. And they could do a back and forth if they wanted to, but it seems weird. But Naito this is the classic thing, right, guys? He's going to do well in the tournament. His losses are going to be carefully parsed out to people who can challenge him on the way to the Tokyo Dome. So a lot of points, only a couple of key losses, but not winning. That's just my feeling on it. And I'm judging from some of the stats I've seen, Chris, that I think everybody else kind of has it pegged the same way.
Do you think he's going to the knockout round, though?
Yeah, I do, because I think there's going to be a key loss in the knockout round. I kind of do.
that's the key loss, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I see this going. I actually see him finishing second or third and getting bounced in that first knockout. I guess you could do either. I don't see him going to the final. That would be pretty unprecedented. But yeah, I think that's where I see him getting eliminated. I don't really know by who, honestly. There's a lot of options here in the A block of guys that could feasibly get a title challenge in the fall, but there's also a lot of guys in the A block that could win the tournament. And oftentimes when a guy that's in the tournament or in the block with the champion, oftentimes they'll beat them in the block and then win the tournament, and then they don't have to waste that title defense at Ryogoku or Power Struggle or whatever. They just go straight to the Tokyo Dome, and the title holder can do whatever they want with the other guys. So there's something there too. If you think that the G1 winner is coming from Naito's block, my recommendation is to have them beat him in the block. If you're gambling or you're putting in a pick, because then again, it gives you more options for big matches for some of the other shows.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing with the champion in that sense, but there are options with Naito. Of course, the big show is King of Pro Wrestling. That's the one that's going to be in October. It's not necessarily the only time the champ's going to defend his title, but it's the key one, and that would be the stop for whoever gets that key victory over Naito. I do see him making the knockout rounds because I still think they want the champion to look very strong. And before they had this playoffs, it wasn't unusual for Okada to be in contention on the final day and be held to a draw or lose in the very end. They always have the champion just barely miss the finals. So my guess is he is going to advance, but maybe get caught up there. I agree with you. I don't think they need him to sell tickets to the G1 finals, because I think the G1 finals sell themselves. So you can knock him out then and then just say, hey, it's going to be a new winner this year. And I think that could be where it goes.
I have a data point from my pal, Jay Michael. Since 2019, 10 wrestlers have beaten the champion in the G1. 6 of them have gotten title shots, 4 have not. So it's not like a shoo-in that you're going to get a title shot. But yeah, and then since 2009, 36 have beaten the champion. 17 have gotten a title shot, 19 have not.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he dug that one up, and that's a good one. I like to share that one.
That does.
So
all right.
I kind of consider this to be the Naito G1 because the entire story is wrapped around Naito in a lot of ways. In his block are ghosts that have haunted him this entire year. You've got the Jake Lee match from the show in June. You've got Sonata, who he beat a number of times cleanly at the beginning of the year. And you also have Callum Newman, who he had a match with at Dominion and that he beat, and there was a little bit of a subplot there. You take into account that trail marker, and you take into account that Sonata was the champion last year. And in his block, granted, there were a lot of a younger generation, but he went undefeated 6-0 in his block. And I kind of think that there is an idea that Tetsuya Naito can surpass that 6-0 record, but he's not going to go clean over and beat everybody. I kind of think Sonata is the guy to hand him a loss in the block play, but maybe not get another title shot, just kind of avenge the losses that he had throughout the year, while the other guys kind of affect him in some way, shape, or form. You know, Callum Newman could offer him a draw and cost him winning the bracket rather than beating him outright, which seemed incredibly far-fetched, but getting a draw instead or a count out just seems like one of those things that you can look at and say, it wouldn't be the conventional thing to do, but if they are trying to protect Naito from getting too many losses, there's going to be a number of smoke and mirrors in his matches because he is not in the greatest of physical health of going 9 matches. A number of the guys have been removed from the G1 for, aging out, but he is the guy in New Japan. He is what they've wrapped everything else around. So I think you guys are right that he's going to get knocked out in post-block play. I don't think he's going to win the block, but I think he's going to be booked very strongly. And I think he's going to lose once. I don't think he's going to lose twice. But if he did lose twice, what would be the 2 losses that he took?
Yeah, I think Shingo's an option. Night 1 with Shingo, right? You got to do the shock.
Yeah.
And who knows, right? Who knows where that goes? Maybe Shingo's the guy that doesn't get a shot because he's in LIJ together, you know? But Shingo's the only guy that never got a shot on the first run, really. Umino, who's probably in play to win the tournament, I guess. I don't tough to gauge him.
It's
right
hard
now.
to read. It's hard to read him at all. But
he uses a lot of words, so it's tough to keep up. I like the Sonata call out. There's always Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, this whole block, it's full of Evil, right? Evil could beat Naito, Jake Lee. They built this block around guys that could feasibly beat Tetsuya Naito, aside from maybe Gabe Kidd and Great O'Khan.
Yeah, it's an interesting way. It's an interesting way of dividing these guys, isn't it? Because when I first saw that it's going to be, they first announced 2 blocks of 10, and then the bracket thing, the playoffs, but they didn't announce who the wrestlers were yet. I kind of just thought, well, who is going to be in the just kicking around? I remember writing down names of the guys that are most like 5 of them ended up in block A. Like of who I thought, okay, well, this guy's definitely going to the playoffs. That guy's definitely going to the playoffs. That guy's definitely going to the playoffs. 5 of the 6 people I had written on the sheet ended up in block A. Like, well, I'm wrong about 2. And maybe more than that. So block A feels pretty loaded up with guys that they have emphasized, lately. So it is curious to see who's going to miss out. And of course, it'll all come down to the final day. It'll be very dramatic who misses out and how. It is interesting, though, that Naito is put in there with Newman on the very last night of block play. That's always
second to last night.
Is it
the last
block match. His last block.
Yeah, his last block. Yeah.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's the second to last night.
It is. It's on the 8th. It's the second to last. Naito faces
Great O'Khan on night.
Has Great O'Khan. So Naito really ends the tournament pretty soft.
He ends the tournament with Great O'Khan. Okay, pardon me. I thought
but the night before, his night 13 is the night he faces Callum Newman. So it's the last match before the final night to set up the scenarios for the final block play.
Seems weird to book it where he beats O'Khan but doesn't get through. I mean, you could. There are ways, but that's weird.
He would have to be hella eliminated, way out. So that feels like Naito's buzzing all just right through. Right, because to me that tells me he's winning these last 2 matches, right? I mean, he's beating Newman. He's not losing.
Naito's story is whether he wins the block or not. I have never in my mind questioned whether he was gonna advance to post.
Naito could be fighting Great O'Khan for a bye, right?
That's possible.
For seeding.
Yeah.
And then fighting there's some, and he's old and he's broken, and the whole Naito story, and then he's got to beat Great O'Khan, and Great O'Khan's
if he won against Callum Newman the night before, the 2 days before, it couldn't matter what he does in this match,
right?
Because he doesn't win. He doesn't get the bye, and then he's put in a position of jeopardy to lose in that first block match and get bounced. And
that seems to be the easiest story to tell with this tail end of the tournament.
Yeah,
and he does have a murderer's row to start off with, because I think his first 3 matches are because Jake Lee, I understand, but storyline wise, that's a biggie. But his first 3 block matches for Naito are Shingo, Zack, and then Jake Lee. So this could be the one, and they do it every tournament, where some favorite gets put behind the 8 ball with early losses and has to win out all the way through, or doesn't quite, and that's the story in its own. So could be what they're doing with Tetsuya there, but I think we all feel like he's going to score a lot of points, just not win the thing. So, and Shark just mentions that Sonata feels like a guy who in kayfabe would push for a title shot if he beat Naito, given he's a faction leader and a relatively recent world champion. So I don't see him beating Naito. That's a fair point too. And they don't really do the underdog story with the champion though, so I don't know about that.
That's true, but
Naito's a different champion.
Naito is Naito, yeah. The champion has typically been very much the last boss, right? Whereas Naito is he's beatable. He's a guy that has lost. He's lost to almost everyone in his block at some point. So it's all feasible.
Yeah, and they're telling a very, very different story with him than they were last year with Sonata as far as beating the champion. Sonata, they felt like they had to make him as champion. Yeah. And that was what that G1 was all about, having him roll through all these guys to make it look at how great he is.
Optics, you have to keep your champion booked at least as strong as the year before. If this guy has beaten Sonata twice already between those two G1s, so there's kind of
I think I would throw away the last two G1 results, and if you're looking for trends, I don't think there's anything to find in a G1 last year with 4 blocks and 20-minute time limits, and a G1 the year prior with the wacky scheduling. So I know that Sonata basically went pretty much undefeated throughout the tournament last year. I don't see them. I don't see that being the path for Naito.
I will say this. I look at it as the mentality of protecting the IWGP title and champion. And so there is a threshold that I am concerned about them going beneath because they need to keep the top of the promotion strong.
If they wanted to do that, then they shouldn't. Never mind. Never mind. I'm not going to get anyone in trouble here.
That's fair. How about we move on to Shota Umino?
Oh boy!
How about that trouble?
That was not planned, but that was in fact the next one up on the.
I think I have to go.
Yeah. Well, what are we doing? Shota Umino could be. So a lot of people are picking him to win the tournament. A lot of people are picking him to advance into the finals of this tournament. And then I think when I put out mine, he didn't make the playoffs, so I mean, and I think you can make good cases either way. It's a real mystery where Shota's going to end up. To me, this is the most intriguing guy in the tournament as to what are they trying to tell us about Shota and where he is.
Okay, let's stop real quick and start from the beginning. What happened here? About 5 weeks ago, Shota Umino got injured in Sapporo, supposedly, and he hurt his hip. And he was going to be out a while, but he said he'd be back for the G1. There was a bit of skepticism to this, but he then announced on video 2 days ago that he was in fact ready and coming back for the G1. And then he joined a press conference today and proceeded to get in a very physical altercation with Gabe Kidd in the middle of the G1 press conference, in which there are a number of questions about the behavior and actions of Shota Umino leading into the G1 and wondering, is this guy going to see his way through the G1? Is this guy okay in many ways? And if so, what is his potential in the G1 tournament? So those are all the umbrella aspects of the Shota Umino situation going into the G1 Climax tournament. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of what was going on before we got too deep in the weeds.
And for that reason, I think for all of those reasons, Shota Umino might be the hardest guy to pinpoint for the tournament. Yeah. He's a guy that they want to be a capital G guy, right? But is he in a position right now, health-wise, mental health-wise, locker room behind him wise, where they can put him at that level? Those are the things that I don't know. And there's a lot of things swirling, right? And to be that top guy, typically the locker room has to buy into you, right? And I don't know. I just don't know. No one has said otherwise to me, but Shota distracts himself a lot. So, and I think that he does that. I mean, that was clear to me when he started to come out with like 3 different ring jackets all at the same time. Like, he's sort of tamed a lot of that down, but I still don't know that he's ready to be the capital G guy, the I won the G1, I'm going to go face Naito guy. And for all those reasons, I think he's the hard, but it's one of those things where that they want it. They want it for him. But as with anything, nobody can want something for you more than you want it. And I think that's what we're seeing with Shota Umino, is that people in New Japan want this for him, and he is not showing that he wants it himself. And you can't will someone to want something.
Okay. Flaming Shark has Shota winning his last 4 matches to make the playoffs, but he says I don't have him going all the way. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I see a lot of the brackets you repost, and I do see Shota in there a lot, and then there's others that he's just totally missing. So right. I think there are a lot of people that feel the way we did. We're just like, it's a coin flip. I don't know what they're trying to tell us with him yet.
I was looking at this, and I've been looking at Umino for a while, and he always struck me as a guy who they're looking to have him climb the mountain finally, next year's Wrestle Kingdom, not this year, but like 18 months from now feels like that's the time to kind of, if they're going to do it, that should be the time with the ascent that he has. And I kind of looked at the way he was going into this G1 with that aspect. I don't know if he can win the whole thing. I don't have him booked to win the whole thing. I kind of have him like beating Evil at the end of the tournament, just kind of getting above him in the block play. It's kind of his victory moment, just kind of like he surpassed a certain level of the roster, and then from here on out he's kind of looked a little bit differently. Because I'm kind of with Chris here. I just get the sense here that I don't think he's unserious, but he's not fully all in on the being the guy for the promotion. Like he likes the perk of being the guy of the promotion, but he's not the guy of the promotion.
All right. Well, who's next after Shota?
All right.
Shingo. Yeah. So earlier in this year, I felt that Shingo was among my favorites, and he's kind of dropped down the list, especially when I saw all the people that were in the A block. But this is a guy I definitely had penciled into the playoffs before I saw all the major contenders in A. And I feel like we're running out of room for LIJ guys in the playoffs with Naito in there. So, but nevertheless, this guy is somebody that I always look forward to performing. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world. He's going to have the great matches. So, again, this is another one who I feel will be in contention until the last day, but is probably not quite going to make the playoffs. He could. He absolutely could. I have him finish fourth in the block, is to show you where I have him there, and perhaps a win over Naito to put him behind the 8 ball. So I think he's going to be treated well, but I don't see him going all the way to the finals in this one. Your thoughts?
I fear that Shingo's the new Ishii,
yes,
where it's match quality over wins, which is fine. It's a fine role, and honestly, he's the guy. He's the guy for it. Shingo's got Naito. What does he have? Naito. He's got Naito, Amino, Great Okan in the first 3 nights. So I think we're gonna have a pretty good idea where Shingo lands by really those first 2 matches. If Shingo beats both Amino and Naito, he is either set up for a humongous fall off of a cliff, or he's gonna make the playoff. So those I think are the 2 key Shingo matches, are actually the first 2 nights. I'm looking forward to 9 Shingo singles matches against high quality professional wrestlers, though. Like you really can't beat that. So we have that going for us, and people like Shingo. There's a little bit of a groundswell in the tournament pick'em towards Shingo having a strong performance or even winning the tournament, but he's not. He's very low. 4 or 5% of people think Shingo's going to win the tournament. I think that's a long shot.
He is a dark horse candidate for sure. I think if you were to look at the last night and see that Shingo Takagi or Jake Lee, that's the matchup. That is essentially a bracket, a block spot, a post block spot. And the idea that Jake Lee would then face Naito after facing Shingo to get into block play and then into Naito feels like a little bit of synchronicity going through the LIJ guys. I don't want to say that that's what they have planned or anything like that, but you can see kind of the building blocks of the direction that they'd be going to be building up Jake Lee for that Naito match by if they were choose to dispatch Shingo. However, that would also lead to the possibility of Shingo versus Naito in post-block play, which could open a number of other storyline purposes if they wanted to do that. But I feel like it feels a little too weird and haphazard if they were to do that, because it feels like you'd be blowing up LIJ completely if you were to do that. And I don't know if that's the play, given it's the biggest faction in New Japan right now.
It's one of those things with Shingo too. You mentioned the Ishii thing, and that's spot on, because there is a downside to being bulletproof with the fans. Because what I mean by that is Ishii can lose to anyone, and the fans still love him. And Shingo has kind of gotten to that point. So, and I'm not predicting this specifically. I'm just saying it. He could beat Naito on the first night, beat the world champion, start off 1-2. and he could lose to Great O'Khan. I mean, like, Ishii would have those tournaments where he would beat Kenny Omega in one of the best G1 matches anyone's ever seen, and then drop a match to Chase Owens and Korakuen, and be the guy that loses to Chase and Korakuen because Chase always pulled an upset in Korakuen. It's one of those deals where Takagi could do that. They don't do that, maybe not as blatantly as they do with Ishii now, but Shingo could trip over somebody on the way there that would just barely keep him out. And it doesn't have to be somebody necessarily world class. It could be somebody getting their big win of the tournament. It comes over Shingo Takagi, and because they figure, well, the fans are going to love Shingo. They know how great he is. So, you can use him that way. And that's kind of where Ishii has been for years, where Shingo might be now.
All right, let's move on to Sonata.
Couple of comments there were real quick here. Sharks just says, blasphemous. I have him number 1 in the A block regular season for Shingo. He says, no belief, no faith in Shingo. We love Shingo. Absolutely.
I do think the most interesting thing they could do is Shingo is turn him heel for the promotion, but I don't think they're brave enough to do that.
Everyone's waiting on Takagi-gun.
Yeah.
Oh, please, just something. After that match with Danielson at Forbidden Door, like, turn this guy heel. Just make him run through the roster.
I mean, classic storytelling. LIJ member wins tournament, turns on Naito, right? I mean, like, it is right there.
I am not ruling it out, and that's why I talked about, like, on the other hand, if you wanted to do this, but it would be risky.
But I'm into
it.
That's usually a New Japan Cup story, but hell, port it over. Let's go.
He also just mentions, I agree, Shingo is basically Ishii, but he feels slightly more credible, maybe because of that one world title reign. But regardless, he's Ishii, but more believable to actually win big things. No, that's not a bad point. You never really thought Ishii would win G1, but maybe Shingo will. Yeah, that's it. Sonata. Well, Sonata. What can we say about Sonata? So, Sonata last year ran through block play as they tried to convince us that he was a world champion, and then he spent the rest of the year showing us he wasn't. And so we got the belt off of him and back on to Naito where it should have been. And so, here he is. And I have to say, the first 6 months of the year, this guy really hasn't been in the mix of much of anything important. So, this kind of feels like he's going to finish maybe in the middle toward the upper half of the pack. But I don't see Sonata he might be mathematically in contention the last day. I don't see him going to the playoffs.
I have a really tough time having any sort of strong opinion about this man.
Yeah.
Except that he looked great at the press conference. Loved his hat, and I love a suit with shorts. I mean, I just think it's a vibe. He's a vibe. I wish he would bring that charisma to a pro wrestling ring. But again, he's a guy. Last summer, this tournament, he was the champion. Don't forget it, right? Like we've all blocked it out of our brain, but it happened. And a lot has happened since then. Also, don't get me wrong, but you got to rebuild him somehow, right? And I guess the G1's the time to do it, but this is a tough block to do it in. He can't buzz through this like he did last year. This is a real G1, as Red Narita told us. So, like,
it does feel that way, yeah.
It does. So, I mean, we got to get back to seeing where you're going to land in a classic traditional G1. And honestly, Sonata used to be Mr. 5 and 4, sometimes Mr. 6 and 3, right? And
I have him at 5 and 4
with the long matches. Sonata with the long matches. So get ready for Sonata some minutes. Get ready for some Sonata minutes.
You mean some mid-card Sonata this year?
Some mid-card Sonata minutes.
All right.
He's got one job, and he's got to be protected a little bit because he was the champion and he went so strong last year that you can't have him fall precipitously from 6-0. So 5 and 4 or 4 and 5 seems about right. And I think the one thing, like I said earlier, that he's going to have a claim to fame this year after losing to Naito twice is in a completely insulated environment. He gets a win back on him, and then we can all just and then he doesn't look quite so geeky as he did this year, and he can kind of start building that back up. And that seemed to me like one of the biggest locks of the tournament was that Sonata would get a win over Naito, because everyone else, there's no real story to that as much as there is a Sonata after losing twice, getting another shot at him.
Okay, so we're going to have to move through these. We are only 1/5 of the way through this, and we're about an hour in.
Do we have any major thoughts about Great O'Khan?
Not particularly. This is a guy. He's the king of pro wrestling, and that's not a title they protect. So I'd imagine he'll be a mid-packer.
Okan has one match every tournament that I'm like, damn, he's so good. And then nothing, right? So I'm looking forward to that one match. It'll probably be against Zack Sabre Jr. Honestly, they have done that a couple of times. So that's all I've got to say about Great Okan is like he's gonna have that moment where you're like, they should push him. No, they're not going to. So move on.
I'm gonna save my Great Okan thought for the opponent that he has with that match. I think would be
okay. Yeah, particularly the Moxley brawl where they went all over the building. You just thought, oh my God, he can do that. This is great, and then he's an interesting promo though. I love his backstage comments. They're unlike anyone else. Zack Sabre Jr. is our next man up here. He is my pick to win the tournament. I think there are all kinds of signs that this is his year. I don't think it is an accident at all that they have featured him to all of the New Japan allies over the last couple of months. He's been in part of major matches in Arena Mexico. He had a really fun match with Orange Cassidy at Forbidden Door. He's got a match coming up again with Hechicero Rev Pro. They seem to be kind of showing him off a little bit. Everybody knows Zach is good, but I don't think it's a coincidence that he's hitting all these major shows for all the people that they work with. So, especially in the current environment, I just feel like this is the year for Zach. He's my pick to win the tournament. What do you guys think?
He's a lot of people's picks to win the tournament. He is the leader in the G1 pick'em pool by far. Something 40 some odd % now are picking Zack Sabre Jr. to win the tournament. I can only answer this with a question, unfortunately. Is Zack Sabre Jr. at the same level as Kenny Omega?
No.
Probably not as a draw because the way that the New Japan fans took to Kenny, but I don't think they have another guy. There aren't two guys at the level in New Japan currently. We lost Will, we lost Okada. Naito is far and away the number one draw, and you could say that either Desperado, maybe Hiromu is the second biggest, and that's not going to be the Tokyo Dome main event. With that in mind, I could see them deciding they do have to have some sort of top foreigner. And I think that Zach is going to be the pick. Naito in the main event. I think Naito in the main event against a really good wrestler will draw at Kingdom. That's my opinion on that. And I think they may have looked at that and said, Zach is the best guy out there. I am as big a fan of Zach as I am of Kenny, and I really hope Kenny gets well soon. And I would love to see him at Wrestle Dynasty and all that. And I really want him back in a New Japan ring at some point. I just hope he's healthy and all. But with that absence, I think this is the best guy out there for it. Danielson can't do a G1. And so Zach is as good as those guys. He's exciting as those guys. And I think he and Naito on top could draw. And I think that might be the point, is establishing him, who has shown loyalty to New Japan and turned down some major offers, that we're going with you for doing so. It's kind of my gut on it.
I agree with all of that.
Except.
But foreigners winning the G1's that's big.
Yeah.
So I it's just hard for me to like put my stamp and say like Zach's winning this G1. He's definitely on my short list. Sure. I don't think he's going to be the guy that ends up at the top of my pick'em pool.
There are really only three guys that you could viably consider winning the G1, and he is one of them in my book. I think we're going to get a final with him and one of the other guys in the other block that is 100% doing that. If big if here, this was my wild big swing in the tournament. I think Zack Sabre Jr. loses to Great Okan on the first night to freak everybody out.
Okay.
Just to scare us, yeah.
That's a fun match too.
It's a fun match, and there's a lot of people that expect Naito to lose, and they have those like surprise upset specials. And Zack Sabre Jr.'s been on a run. Great Okan has been very, very quiet, but that is precisely the kind of match that they like to do, where it's like Zack gets caught by a big man, and he goes down for the count, and he loses, and he's behind in the block all the way through, and he's got a race to beat everybody else out after, you know, a number of years where he started out strong and kind of made the mistake otherwise. It'll help him get focused, if you will. But if he loses to Great O'Con, man, I think I know exactly where they're going with him, and it's just going to be a race to get past Naito.
And so Flaming Shark says he has a PTSD to when Naito used to be his number one guy years ago. I can't handle people actually believing Zach is going to finally get his due. Colin says that Zach is his pick to win it, and Shark says it's his pick to win it too. So it feels that way, but yeah, there's certainly no guarantees, and there are other people that we're about to get that we're not too far away from getting to who could absolutely win this tournament. Gabe Kidd is not one of them, but he is I call the Chaos Goblin of this block. You can do just about anything with him. He can beat anybody. He can get himself disqualified against anybody. He can fight to a double count out with anybody. It's nice to have the equivalent of the Wild Draw 4 Uno card in this tournament, and I think that's Gabe's function here, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see him getting to the playoffs or winning anything, but he might be the guy we come out talking about the most as far as being really having some really entertaining matches against this A block.
He's a dude. He's a dude. He's gonna be a dude. He's gonna do dude things.
He is going to make a mess of a lot of things, and I think that a lot of what our conversations about him are going to be reacting to the wild things he did rather than work rate and or, you know, 5-star classics. I think we're going to be entertained, but I don't think we're getting work rate matches to the level of some of the other guys.
I think we're going to end up talking a lot about him, though. I think that's the main thing. Evil, you know, again, this is a guy that, because of the House of Torture aspect of it, could beat anyone. That, you know, you get the low blows, you get the foreign objects, you get the interference. So another wild card in there. But like you guys were just saying, this feels like a 5-4, 6-3, but not advancing type of year for Evil, for me anyway.
You got to figure that Amino match on the last night means something. They've talked about wanting to build up Hantai as a place that people want to be, and then we've got this committee thing. You know, Evil's always going to be a factor. We're going to hear about it. I can't wait. Can't wait to deflect commentary about Evil. You know, I don't think he'll be as prominently featured this year as he has in years past, but I also think that there will be some sort of story going into that last night. And maybe it's just something for Amino to do when he's eliminated, or it's a way to get him through, or Amino eliminates Evil. You know, like all those stories exist. One of them's going to happen. That's my like match of the tournament for him. So I've got 8 matches until I really need to key in on what's happening with Evil.
And that's a very kind of Tanahashi-esque story, but I mean, what I mean by that is just the total babyface move is like, well, I'm eliminated, but by God, I'm not going to let Evil ruin this tournament for everybody else, like type of thing on the last night story for Shota.
Yeah, I feel like with all the things they said about downshifting House of Torture and, you know, not emphasizing them as much, this is the giant flag saying, hey, watch this match. This is what we're talking about kind of thing, because this is when people will be watching at the end of the G1. So if they continue to emphasize Evil in any way, shape, or form near the end of the tournament, they're going to hear it from the fandom, because that's when they're watching.
Jake Lee. Well, here it is. Now, I had him, I'll say this, before he said goodbye, Noah, and did that whole thing, when I thought that he was a guest here, I thought that his trajectory was maybe beating Naito to set up that title match later, and then not making it to the finals. Like almost similar to what Moxley did a little bit, where he comes off real strong early and then faded late. And when Moxley had his G1, the fact that he seems to be sticking around changed my mind a little bit. I have him going on into the playoffs now, but just because I think he's here for a reason, and I don't think it's just to fill out the card. They seem to have bigger plans for Jake than that.
He's another one. He's another one that's tough to. I mean, it's just tough to read because we haven't really seen New Japan book Jake Lee, right? So, curious about it. He at the press conference, he looked like he was the 3rd trombone player in a ska band. So there's that. Whatever. But
happy.
The skinny tie and the ill-fitting a little bit too small suit. So maybe he wasn't ready for a G1 press conference. It's okay. We'll get you there, bud. Yeah, not sure. I've got my eyes on that Naito match. I do think that's an obvious, it's an obvious upset special. But I no longer would call that my lock of the tournament, just because there's more chances to run that now if he's going to be around.
Sure.
Yeah, the minute he joined Bullet Club, I was like, well, up wherever he's going in the blocks a little bit. That's like 2 or 4 points in upgrade and what he's going to win just by the branding of Bullet Club. And I looked at him like, well, if I wasn't sure he was going to post block, I feel like this is the time now. So Callum Newman.
Yeah. Look, his job he has one job. Callum Newman has one job here. Have good matches. That will do more for him than anything else. He doesn't have to score a lot of points. He's going to get a few, but he's probably going to finish at the bottom of this table, but it's far more important to him to just look good doing it. And that'll go a long way. He's had great matches when he's been in with good workers. His Ishii match was terrific. He did good stuff in the build up to this. So if he keeps that up, he will come out of this in greater standing than when he went in. And that's his goal for this tournament.
Slow down and grab a hold, kid. Don't.
Too
Please
excited.
don't.
Yeah, too
Please
excited.
don't.
Yeah.
Grab no holds. Grab no holds.
He's 21 years old. They talk about how young he is. He talks about how he's excelled. I look at it, and I think he's going to score the lowest amount of points of anyone in the tournament. I think that's going to be his story. And, I think he has one job in this. And when I saw it, that match at Dominion, I thought he is going to cost Naito winning the block. That is his entire existence in this G1 tournament in a lot of way, shape, or form. And if he causes him through a count out, a draw, I don't expect Callum Newman to beat Naito unless it was like a count out win. But that to me is the Newman experience in 2024 is that he will make Naito regret ever meeting him.
I need to verify this, and I'm pretty sure it's true that Callum Newman versus Gabe Kidd, whatever date that happens, will be the youngest G1 match in history.
That's fantastic.
Wow. And you mentioned too, let's just go ahead and mention it now before we go to the next block, but under 33 years old this tournament. Average age right here, and one of not quite the youngest ever, but amongst them. And that's exciting considering I saw I'm getting this off of your ex, of course, but we very recently had one of the oldest, not very long ago. 2021
was the oldest tournament in G1 history. This will be the 5th youngest. So and the youngest since 2003, which was a tremendous tournament with Jun Akiyama in the final. So we're in good company and with the youth. And you can kind of see some pivot points if you pull up the ages too. 2012 was right in the middle, right? So that was another turning point year. So I think consider this the start of something.
It feels like this, we were excited that it's going back to 2 blocks, just to speak generally again before we get into the individual wrestlers, but divided into 2 blocks, this new playoff format that everybody's a little bit excited about, the elimination of Chase Owens and Yujiro and Yano, where there are no nights off. It's just you're in there with good workers just about every night. This feels like a tournament where if it's not the best G1 ever or whatever, I feel like in 3 years from now we'll be looking back and just saying that's kind of when all this started. Whatever this is, it feels like it could be one of those pivotal tournaments where things are very different. Of course, we do have some different people in the office. That's not just storyline. There are some different people in charge. So it does feel like this is the start of something rather than just a stop on the way. So I'm excited about it. That's just my little soapbox thing.
All right, we're just going to start with the top of the order on B block.
David Finlay. So we have David Finlay, the leader of Bullet Club, always taken seriously in the G1. You have to take the Bullet Club leader seriously. I've been saying for a while that Finlay is doing his part anyway. He's been having good matches. He's been intense. I think he's been wrestling well. It's difficult because the fans have had years of seeing him as a mid-card kind of happy babyface guy. So this is a challenge for David, but I think this tournament has him set up to at least go to the finals or not the finals rather, but the playoffs. I mean, postseason play here. And again, as the global champion, his losses are going to be key because that's going to set up stuff for him down the road too. I think he's going to have a pretty prominent role here. And again, his job is just to keep doing what he's doing, and hopefully he gets over a little better. It's getting crowded because Gabe Kidd gets a lot of attention. Now you got Jake Lee, but Finlay has a really good tournament and wrestles well. He can come out of this as a stronger Bullet Club leader, which is always important in New Japan.
My lock of the tournament is that ELP is beating David Finlay on the last night of blocks to take David Finlay out of the tournament play.
Really? Not to take away his bye, but to take him out of the final.
I think to eliminate him, and I don't know if ELP will have any stake in moving on to, but I think that sets up a global title match, gives ELP something to do. ELP is Hantai. They have told us that they want Hantai to be a strong unit. ELP is Hantai. It's the last night of the tournament. ELP can do nothing for the first 8 matches. He could win that match, and he's in the rocket is lit. So that is my newest current, and I this is my last appearance prior to the G1. So I guess this is my lock of the tournament is El Phantasmo, my friend El Phantasmo, is beating David Finlay on the last night of this tournament, and to take Finlay out, because I think the chalk pick is Finlay at least is going to the playoffs, right?
Yes, yeah.
They got to send. I think they're going to end up sending someone through who is surprising in the B block, and I think Finlay is way too chalk, and he's already a champion. He just needs to set up his stories going forward. I think ELP has his moment on the last night of blocks.
That's a bold one.
The way I was going with that too, and I you make a terrific case for it. The way I was thinking was, Finlay is winning almost all of his matches. He's doing great. He's maybe neck and neck with one other guy that we'll talk to in a bit, Suji, and they're like sweating it out. And he has been talking every single night in post-match comments about, I'm not going to wrestle any semifinals. I'm going straight to the to the end of that. No one can stop me. I'm going straight to that. And so they really pound the idea that he's getting the bye. Really pound that into it. And then El Phantasmo takes that away from him, maybe sends him on a spiral. Well, then he loses 2 in a row. And what happened was, I'm getting a bye. I'm winning this thing. I'm going to the dome. And all of a sudden, like, what the shit happened? And now he gets his hand. Now he says, I'm going to strangle ELP the second I get a handle on him. Like that. So
very plausible.
Either way, though, I mean, your way works. So I think he's going to come out of this royally pissed off at Phantasmo to set off that match. So. Should be fun though, because I think those two are going to work together really well once they get in there.
Totally.
I had a wild thought that it was possible that Finlay loses to Takeshita and then he loses to Bolton Oleg, which would be a huge upset, but it would be something that no one really expected, which would get him to 2 losses, but also against 2 people that, you could look at it like, oh, is this going to end up being like a post-block matchup? And I thought it was possible that you could have Finlay and Takeshi to do that. I think that they booked Finlay so strong that I thought he was going to make post-block play no matter what. I felt like there was another contender that you could book up for him with the post-block play, but I do really like the ALP call, so I got to think about that going forward. So there's a lot you can do with Finlay. He is booked as a final boss for the block. Will he be the final boss for the block? I kind of think so, but at the same time, that is the expected thing to do.
Who's next?
All right, let's see here.
And after that, we will have Yota Tsuji. So I'm glad he's up here because he's actually the guy I thought would knock Finlay out of the playoffs to set up that global title match. I think that might be Yota Tsuji's final destination as his storyline for the second half of the year is going after that global title, which obviously means I don't have him winning the tournament, but I already said I picked Zach. So this would be Tsuji. I have Tsuji going to the finals, beating Finlay, going to the finals against Zach, and Zach winning. That's just my prediction on that. And I know I'm not alone.
Yeah, that is the most common final.
Yeah, which means it's probably not going to happen. But the Yoda is another guy out here.
Hard to say. it works for me.
Another guy who could come exploding out of this tournament, though, because if he goes all the way to the finals, he eliminates Finlay, he loses to Zach. That doesn't hurt anybody. But then he has the global program. Suddenly he's pushing that main event spot even a little harder than he was before. So this is an important tournament for this guy. He really needs to show up here.
Yeah, and we've seen him show up in tournaments before. Right? I mean, New Japan Cup winner, and that's what takes him out, to me, immediately out of contention to win the G1. Yeah, because you don't win the New Japan Cup and the G1 in the same year. Like no one's ever done it. But what I will say is that every top tippy top New Japan guy ends up with a thing, right? One thing to hang their hat on. It's their first thing. The longest reign, the Tokyo Dome wins, the
only guy to win the cup and the G1 in the same
bunch
year.
of G1s, right? So like if he needs a thing, there are not many things left. So that's a thing that Tsuji could have. I don't see it happening with Naito as the champion though. Right? Yeah. That's not an obvious matchup. I think if they want to do LIJ versus LIJ and know that they're going to have a drawing match at the Tokyo Dome, then Shingo Takagi's winning the G1.
And just checking this out. Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah, well, just checking this out there. Tsuji has a strong year, right? And then we go into next year. If say Zach wins the title, Tsuji could win the G1 next year. This kind of puts him in position to be slingshot into that spot. You know, like you lose one before you lose like an NBA team that loses in the finals before they win it. That kind of feels like what this year is.
That's very common New Japan storytelling too. You lose the G1 and then you turn around and you win it the next year. You lose the final and then you turn around and win it the next year. I mean, like it's one of it used to be just classic. Like you knew exactly where it was going. Yeah. Now that's been put aside a little bit, but it's still an option.
Toyota Tsuji has an interesting order of draw. He starts with Takeshita and David Finlay in his first two matches.
He's losing that Takeshita match.
I think he's losing both of those matches, and then he'll potentially have to fight his way through both of them in post-block.
I was going to say, I think he gets the Takeshita win back in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that sets up something cool for January 5th.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And we know the powers that be at AEW like Tsuji, too. So
he has a pathway to 12 points where he loses 3 matches, and that would be Finlay, Takeshita, and then the last guy that I feel like you need to draw a circle around that Tsuji takes a loss from is Hiroki Goto after the New Japan Cup finals, which would put him at the 12 and is just the right guy to put a level of drama, whether he's going to be able to beat Jeff Cobb on the last night. Which is another guy that we need to have a conversation about his pathway, but we'll get there in a minute.
All right. Well, who's next? So we expect big things from Tsuji, but not a win. All three of us kind of agree on that one. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the final.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. I think he's the finals. Yuya Uemura, another guy who really needs to have a good tournament, at least have good matches. He's not going to win. He's not going to make the playoffs. He's probably going to be a 5-4, 4-5 guy. He needs to have good matches, though. If anyone's backslid in the last 9 months, I hate to see it because I like the guy, but he is less than he was when he got here from Excursion. Having a good G1 would help him. He's not going to score a lot of points. He needs to have good matches.
Yeah, and I think he needs one big win. And maybe by big win, I don't even necessarily mean like big scalp. I might mean like beat Ren Narita, right? Like beat the guys from your generation. So like the match for Uemura that I've got circled is the Tsuji match to either, I don't know, go to a draw or, it could be
that's very Yuya and Tsuji thing.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's what I mean. Like that's their story. Their story is that nobody wins the matches. Yeah. So, and now this is the start of their G1 story. And those are sort of a microcosm of the full story about those guys. So I'm thrilled to see that match. I can't wait for that. That's the one I've got circled to see really where Yuya is in the pecking order, right? If they see him as a guy that could get to that level, a guy with potential, or just a dude that isn't going to work out. I think this is a really telling tournament for him. It's his actual first G1. Whereas the other younger guys in the tournament, most of those guys were in last year's G1, but he came back shortly thereafter and, he hasn't really taken off. So, and he's my dude. He's my dude from that generation. So I just so badly want it to be a thing. So we'll see. We'll see. He's got the look.
All right.
Jeff Cobb, our television champion. So, yeah, that's another title that doesn't necessarily get protected. But Jeff Cobb is a guy who usually gets protected and usually does very well in the G1. So I'm curious to see where he ends up here. I don't think there's room for him in the playoffs this year, just with everything else we've already talked about. But you can't count him out because whether he has a title or not, and he does, they don't like to beat this guy too terribly often.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that they absolutely could plausibly just toss into the playoffs. You know, he's more believable than Hikuleo. So
yes,
he's, you know, he's
and that's not a knock on Hikuleo.
No, not at all. It's just that Jeff Cobb is that level. You know, he's that guy that you can heat up at a moment's notice, throw into a big spot, and then he's a great scalp for someone, right? So
yeah, I didn't mean that as a knock on Hikuleo at all. But you're right. He has a lot of big wins over very prominent guys that Hikuleo didn't, and Hikuleo made the playoffs last year.
Right.
So.
That was exactly the comparison. Yeah. Not trying to throw shade at Talatanga. But Jeff, again, Jeff is just a dude that they can fire up and throw on the pan and make a wonderful meal out of. You know, like just give someone something to have Suji kill him in the playoffs, you know, or in that last night. Like he's a guy that you want in contention because he's so believable. And that's such a good position for a pro wrestler to be in. You know, I mean, and Cobb's great. We know it, right? Like, and he's going to show up at a really high level for like 4 matches. And then, you know, the other 5 are going to be good, like plausible, good pro wrestling matches. But, you know, those 4, when they show up, you know, I've got like Goto, Suji, Hinare, and Takeshita circled for like those big matches that you're going to get some awesome Jeff Cobb stuff on. And listen, I'm not going to complain about that.
No, so many good matches in this tournament, really, when you look at it. And we'll talk a little about how fresh some of them are, and we'll get to that in a little while. But what's next?
Well, I was just going to say, Cobb has the pathway to winning all of his matches and the front end, like he's done the last couple of years. But it's really interesting because once he gets to Hinare in the middle of the tournament, that could probably be the match in which his entire fortunes change. And the fact that it's Hinare and United Empire with each other, a lot of people might think you have to pick him. A lot of people lean towards Cobb, but I'm strongly thinking that Hinare is going to come out as the winner in that match. So
that match has double knockout list all over it to me. If I'm
good,
I am hypercritical of people who pick a lot of draws in contests, because the correct answer of how many draws should you pick in a G1 pick'em is 0. But I'm real tempted to slap the draw button on that one because
he did a draw. He got a draw last year, so I'm gonna. So
but last year
I'm leaning away.
Last year
from
was
it.
Such an anomaly.
I understand. I understand, but you could do the draw again. I feel like they want to come up with a new creative way for him to get cost out of the tournament, and that might be going back to the well when they find different approaches to do that. And this is me trying to figure out exactly what they have planned here, but losing to Hinare and then losing 4 straight, ending with Bolt and Oleg at the very end, and then setting up a TV title feels incredibly realistic to me.
Cobb has the best winning percentage in the G1 in this block.
Yes.
So he's got a 575 winning percentage. The next closest is Finley with 571. So I mean, he's sort of the dude here. He's one of the dudes here.
He is always protected, and he always wins a lot of his matches on the front end, and it always ends up getting mathematically bounced out by fluke.
He's got the fourth highest G1 winning percentage of the whole field.
He went 8-1 at one point, and I think got bounced out of the G1.
Yeah, it was 21,
which is amazing. So, all right, Hinare.
Well, you know, again, this is a guy that has a title that they do take seriously, the never open weight title. So his losses will be important. Never open weight title is usually fairly well taken care of in this one. So, you know, he again a few key losses, but I don't see him going to the playoffs. But like you mentioned, Jeremy, I agree with you. I think that some of his matches could be sort of the hinge points for various other characters within the tournament.
Yeah, definitely equalizer matches.
It'll be interesting to see Hinari in a full traditional G1. That's what I'm looking forward to most. It's just like, what does he do with 9 matches? Like, dude, it's got to pace himself a little bit.
Yeah, and come up with different things to do every night too. You can't just do the same act. Well, some people can. Never mind. Ishii does the same act every time. We love it. To be fair,
it's fine.
Fair. Yeah.
Speaking of someone that I want to see pace themselves in this.
No, go.
No, yeah.
Go full gear the whole time.
I have him making the playoffs in this one because I think it's just the AEW New Japan relationship kind of screams that out to me that he needs to. That I'm not sure they would send him over there not to. But the whole thing with him is there's so many friggin' stories you can tell with this dude. And I think he goes pretty far in this tournament. Don't think he wins it. I don't think he makes the finals, but I think he's around. I think he's around pretty late in this one. And man, am I excited to see him in G1 level matches against this lineup.
He's also got a match on DDT Peter Pan, which is why they had to bounce his second match of the tournament to an A-block night.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's wrestling at Peter Pan. So that probably tells you when this whole thing came together. Not early. I'm not ruling out Takeshita in the final.
Yeah.
As a outsider heel, not again, back to 2003, Jun Akiyama, right? That whoever then goes in from the A block could be this defender of New Japan, right? And in my opinion, then that's probably Shota Umino, which seems crazy to me, but Umino versus Takeshita is a G1 final. It sounds great. But banding New Japan together, a Hantai guy against the AEW DDT, like the outsider dude who hopefully plays up heel. Maybe Don Callis shows up. You can do this whole thing and make it this big thing. That could be a sick final. I don't know that that's my pick, but if I'm
compelled to argue for it.
I think if I'm booking it, that's kind of the direction I go. And it keeps your dude strong. I mean, he's not going to lose much. So he's making the finals. I think he's going to win. He's making the knockouts. I think he's winning the block, and he's either getting eliminated in that semifinal because he's going to get that bye. He's going to get eliminated in that semifinal, or he's going to the final, and that'll inform me who I think will then go to the final.
So. I have the same thing as Tsuji winning the block final against him and then going to the G1 final against Zach.
I lean that way because New Japan clearly needs to make a star of their own. Yeah. But you could also use Umino in the final against Takeshi. There's this whole thing.
You can see a lot of traditional pathways of how New Japan booked with a lot of the guys that they have.
Yes. But it is one of the most unpredictable G1s in the last whatever.
At the same time, they might be weaponizing that predictability to catch you off guard with a couple other things, which is what you're kind of suggesting at here. I wouldn't rule it out. I tend to think, though, that they're going to be playing it a bit more safe, knowing that they got this guy already for a couple of nights in January.
Totally.
Yeah. I was going to say, Wrestle Dynasty can change your thinking in a lot of this stuff too, knowing that it's there. So, and I'm excited about that because then we can have a Wrestle Kingdom that's just totally New Japan centric and have all the special guest stars there the next night. So I do like that a lot. Ren Narita, he's the B Block Chaos Goblin, right, Jeremy? This is the guy that could beat anybody. The jeopardy is always there as you watch the match because there could be that push-up bar that he whacks people with. But he's going to be a guy that finishes the middle of the pack. It's not his year.
Yeah, he's the guy they end up having a flat tire after he walks by your car. It's just bad news. You got anything to add to that, Chris?
I don't, and I've got a hard out here in 1 minute. So
any last?
I hate to miss the opportunity.
We only got 2 more. We only got 2 more to go, but they're Goto and ELP. What do you got?
Hate to miss the opportunity to talk Hiroki Goto. He is the most seasoned G1 competitor. It's still in the tournament with 133 G1 matches under his belt, but I don't have much more to say about him. I've sort of already given my spiel about El Phantasmo. So I do think we've covered everything I can cover. I do have to run
for wrestling one more time.
sportofprowrestling.com, g1.sportofprowrestling.com. You've got about, where are we at now? We got 33 hours to enter the competition. Go get into it. It's a cool community. It's going to be a neat thing. Get yourself signed up. pick your poison. Even if you don't know anything about this stuff, just drop some picks in because it's a good time. So I really appreciate you guys having me. I'm sorry that I have to run.
No, you gave us 90 minutes.
I will leave.
So thankful for you.
I will leave the screen open. I appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you all soon. Okay.
Thanks, Chris Samsa from the Sport of Pro Wrestling. We appreciate you. All right, man, it's fantastic to have him here. It's always, it's so fun this time of year to speculate. We do love guests, but in particular, Chris recognized it. He had to have a heart out. We can go for 3 hours. Like the last time Chris was on the show, he and I ended up talking for another half hour afterwards, and we only stopped then because I had to leave. So that was it. It's very easy to do. So Hiroki Goto, we're going to continue on here. We only have a few guys left, then we're going to cover
him and Phantasmo.
The first night. Then we're going to cover the first couple nights, and then we'll talk Fantastica Mania briefly as well here. So we're going to go a little long, but it's G1 week. We can. So Hiroki Goto, we expect to have a couple of important wins because they always want to give him a little bit of something. But when I was looking at this, Jeremy, I kind of struggled to find a whole lot of victories for Goto in this one. So I feel like this is probably going to be a rough year results-wise from Goto, but the wins he gets will be consequential.
Takeshita, Tsuji, Hinare, and Bolton. Those are the guys I have Goto beating. Totally safe. He's not really going to be facing Takeshita off and on. So if Takeshita takes a loss from Goto, it's not a big deal. And just kind of adds to the mix. But yeah, he's there as a guy. I don't think anyone really thinks that he's got a shot. And if he hadn't been put in a position to be prominent in the cup, I'm not even sure he wouldn't have been in the play-in tournament, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, he did well enough in the G1 last year to justify his spot of automatically getting in storyline wise. Anyway, that was how they presented. USVA guy, I want to bring this one in here too. He says Takeshi's a big wild card over it. He's not a huge name amongst fandom in Japan. He's now a bigger name internationally. It'd be interesting to see how New Japan fans react.
Definitely.
I think they're going to react to his matches because the guy's so talented. But yeah, that's a fair point. El Phantasmo, we talked about him. His tournament begins on the last night against David Finlay. Really, I don't see him being in contention for one of those playoff spots there. But we've already talked about it. We really feel like it's the upset special of the tournament, that it's going to set up something for the global title between he and Finlay.
Yeah, they have yet to run this back from a thing that they did a few years ago. I'm a little skeptical that they're going to run with that, just given that his arc right now is that he's in the dumps and he hasn't really, he's going downward. And so suddenly getting a win off of Finlay, they really have to build that up throughout the tournament. And if they don't, I'm not sure that people are going to buy into it.
It could be a whole thing where this is the only thing that'll pull me out of this funk.
Absolutely. And there's a story to tell there, but I feel like unless they really hammer home, like he just can't get a win, or like things are just not going his way, or he can't get it together, whatever it is, if they're not able to do that, then I feel like maybe that might not be the direction we're going at the very end. I don't know, but he is a definite wild card, just given like everything about him is, there's a rain cloud wherever I walk.
Yeah, he's definitely. And that makes sense storyline wise too. But something's got to pull him out of it. And then Bolton Oleg, here he is. So we have the new guy in, and he is of course 1/3, as you can see there with the belt and the graphic. The 1/3 of the Never Openweight champions. He beat both of his tag team partners in order to get in this thing along the way. And I think this is going to be a similar thing to. Maybe Goto, perhaps. I'm curious to see how many wins he gets. I don't think he's going to win the thing. I don't think he's at a point in his drawing power and stardom to get to that point of really being in contention to win it. Maybe in the future, absolutely. Maybe not this year. This is all about getting reps and getting that experience. But the wins he gets will tell us a lot.
I think that he's not going to win a lot, but I think they're going to be consequential. I mentioned it with the Finlay thing. I think he beats David Finlay.
Interesting.
I have nothing to base that on other than Finlay needs to take a couple losses in this thing in order for there to be...
question though. You also have him beating Cobb. Does he really come out of this with 2 title shots? Or
I don't think he gets the title shot out of the Finlay match. I think
Finlay match he just doesn't get it.
It just like he's already. I don't think he does. I think other things may come of that, but I do think that, Finley losing a match against a big physical presence that he doesn't take fully seriously is exactly the kind of scenario that is going to cost him a match.
His hubris gets him there. Yeah.
Yes, there is. He looks at this guy like you're still a young lion, and he just gets caught. And there's something about that in the middle of the tournament where all of a sudden there's jeopardy for him winning the block outright that I think, and I think that's the part where ELP plays, is that Bolton gets the victory on him and ELP threatens him losing the block, but he doesn't. And that plays more into the ELP downward spiral rather than the pivot into an upward trajectory. It could go many different ways, but those are the two possible, the most viable directions that you can go with this thing. And so him having 2 or 3 very, very oh my God, you beat that guy kind of thing, as opposed to, going 10 in his first. I don't see that. I think rookie mistakes and people, veteran maneuvers are going to get him, but there's going to come a point where he's like, oh, I've got this figured out. And all of a sudden he becomes very dangerous in the tournament.
Flaming Shark has a point. By the way, I don't have him finishing last in the B block, Bolton. I think he gets enough wins that he does not finish last in the block.
I have him tied with a number of other people at 6.
He said, Shark says, I actually had Oleg with a better record than a couple of guys. Yeah, me too. Maybe I'm nuts, but I think he'll get some wins. Hard for me to ignore beating Tanahashi and Taichi back-to-back. That's an important point. I don't think that they'll have I don't think they will have done all that to see him go 0-8 or what, or 0-9 or 8. Certainly not going to do that. But even 2-7 feels low for a guy that beat Tanahashi and Taichi. So I could see him getting 8.
I expect after the first couple of nights of the G1, someone on commentary says getting into the G1 is not the same as being in the G1. After a few losses for both guys. So I think Bolton will get the hang of it after a few matches, but I think Callum Newman will struggle mightily in his block and serve as a reminder that, being in the G1 is a very tough task.
All right. And do we go through all 20 guys then? That's
all
20.
We did it.
How about that? All right. So let's take a look at how things are starting out. So Saturday in Osaka. So we're going to do 2 nights. That's Saturday and Sunday at the Edion Arena. It's the big, it's the second biggest building, but it's the one where they have Grand Sumo, the one where they usually do big shows there. They go to Osaka Joe Hall sometimes for Dominion, but this is a pretty big arena in Osaka, Edion Arena. Probably the most recognizable one in New Japan fans. And we are opening up with a very strong 10-match card, so nothing but block matches. And the main event is going to be Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito. We've talked about that. You want to just go from the bottom up then?
Yeah, we'll go the bottom up and then.
The opener, the very first G1 match, is going to be Bolton Oleg against Ren Narita. That's the first match of the G1 tournament this year. So will we see House of Torture shenanigans to set up the whole thing and a win, or will Oleg get his first victory? He did just beat Taichi and Tanahashi. So does he lose to Ren Narita out of the gate? We'll have to find out.
I think the Chaos Goblin's going to ruin his first night in the G1. Like I said, getting in the G1 is different than being in the G1.
After that is Shota Umino and Callum Newman. And at first glance, anyway, Newman seems unlikely to get an upset here. But again, newcomers are often treated very well right out of the gate. So you can't say forget about it.
I don't want to rule it out, but I feel like they want to let people know that Shota is just fine on the first match. If he didn't have injury concerns, I would consider him to be potentially losing. But I think that the confidence that Shota is perfectly healthy is probably going to take place.
El Phantasmo against Henare. I don't see this one going well for Phantasmo because I think they still want to get him down to rock bottom before the bounce back. And plus, again, you do. I understand that not everybody automatically gets a title match, but you don't want to beat your champions a lot. Right. So I feel like Henare here to continue the story of El Phantasmo, still trying to kind of scrape himself up off the ground from the blows he's taken.
I have a number of those mid-card title holders all winning their first match on the G1 cards. I feel like that just sends the wrong message to have title holders lose unless there is an ulterior plan, and I don't think that's the case.
After that, we have Zack Sabre Jr. and the Great Okan. So that'll be interesting to see where they're going with Zack, as he has some big matches early in the tournament.
This is my upset special.
And then after that one, we will have Hiroki Goto and Jeff Cobb. So should be a hell of a match. I'm really interested in seeing these two go at it. I mean, just two really big, strong guys that are terrific workers. Should be fun.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those matches where Jeff Cobb comes out slinging, Goto comes out slinging, and they set the tone for the rest of the G1 for the rest of the people.
We have Jake Lee and Sonata coming up after that, and the part
they're the same person.
It is the same guy. I keep coming back to this: is that guests and newcomers tend to do well in their openers, not every single time, but this feels like you wouldn't do all that with Jake Lee and then have him fall to Sonata.
I 1000% believe that Jake Lee is going to beat a former IWGP World Champion on his first night as a New Japan member. So that's my prediction on that one.
Yuya Uemura and David Finlay. And for the same reasons, I feel like Hanari wins his first match. Finlay's a global champion. I don't see an upset special on day one with Uemura in this case.
No. I think they're going to make sure Finlay looks strong.
Gabe Kidd and Evil. So this was interesting. You know, it's always going to be interesting with Gabe because he just has such a wild presentation. And but you know, at the press conference, he got right up in Evil's face. You know, I think you've been a joke for years. I don't take you seriously. There's actually been months of trash talk not between them so much as Gabe just directing it at Evil. Evil hasn't said a whole lot about it, but he's kind of called the Evil a joke. So they've been trying to layer on a little bit building up to this. And, you know, we'll just have to see if this committee I talked about earlier plays a factor as the tournament goes on. This could be a match that brings them into the fold early as like, okay, we can't be having this, can we?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in this match, but I'm very curious about what's going to happen in this match.
I think they're going.
That's what I got to say about that. Gabe Kidd is literally a madman. They painted his nose red for this picture. I don't know what's going on with that, but he is unhinged in, I think, a mostly controlled way, but he has been completely unhinged over the last.
This match here, just with these two, the way they're presented, Evil and Gabe Kidd, is a chance for them to really emphasize the lawlessness of Bullet Club and House of Torture.
Yeah.
And so I have a feeling this one could be pretty nuts, just with whether it's interference or just violence or something going on. It just feels like this is here to remind us that we need a sheriff in town.
It's going to be a wild one. And I think we'll be having a few minutes conversing about this one next week.
Watch it be 10 minutes and he just beats him with everything is evil. Anyway, after that, Yota Tsuji and Konosuke Takeshita in a match that, boy, on a strong card, Jeremy, I think I'm looking forward to this one as much as I am any of them.
There's a lot of people, when the G1 was first announced and they saw this match, they're like, yes, please give it to me.
Yeah.
And I can't disagree. This would main event a lot of cards, but unfortunately there are even better matches on this card that they have to get to. And, you know, if I was put on my booking hat here, Takeshita wins on his first night in the New Japan ring as well.
Yeah, I think so also. So our main event will be Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito. They've only wrestled each other one other time. Naito won back in 2019 as part of the G1 that year. So taking a look at this gun, man, Shingo and Naito should be great. This is a chance to put the champion behind the 8-ball or to just kind of, establish that he's got his tournament off and running. I think it's a little more interesting if Shingo wins and Naito doesn't just get off and running. But again, you don't want to beat the champ too much. But either way, I have a feeling we're going to get hardworking Naito here. We always get hardworking Shingo. Should be a terrific main event.
This could be a match of the year candidate, given the caliber of the people in the match. A lot of people have wanted to see this for, clamoring for it. I don't know if the scenario and the position of them on the roster makes it perfectly ideal, but there's going to come a point where they might run this back and it could be one of the hottest matches ever.
So night 2 is also in the same building, like I said, the next night. And this is interesting to me, Jeremy. I was looking at this, and 6 of the matchups on this card are first singles meetings between the two men. 2 others have only had 1 in the past. So of the 10 matches, 8 of them are in their first or second meeting with each other as in singles matches. So we wanted fresh matches, didn't we? At the beginning of the year, we're getting fresh matches.
We did. It has arrived, and I'm here for it. First one up. Go for it.
Sonata and Callum Newman. And the first several are, I'll point out when we don't have a first meeting. How about that? Sonata and Callum Newman, first time singles match between the two. And then
another first time match.
Bolton Oleg. Yeah, a lot of Boltons are going to be that way. Against Henare, the never champ here again. If they want to create challengers, you can do it, but you don't want to beat them too often. But Henare and Bolton is an interesting one here. Just I feel like Bolton is learning rapidly, but he's still pretty green. It's going to be up to the guy he's in with to kind of carry him along. Look at the job Taichi did, for instance, with that. Tanahashi was great in this. Very curious. I'm not saying Henare isn't the guy that can carry someone, but his style of wrestling might make this a bit of a challenge. I'm curious to see what this match looks like.
I think it's going to be a beefcake match where they're just beating each other with clubbing blows and power moves. I don't think it's going to be like a Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar where it's like 8 minutes, all power moves and done. But I definitely think these guys are going to be feeling it in the morning after they're done with each other.
Next one. Great O'Khan and Gabe Kidd. So yeah, that's another one that should be entertaining anyway with the way Kidd does his matches.
I think it's interesting to find out whether they consider the strong title or the King of Pro Wrestling provisional title more important.
I guess we might find out here. After that, we have El Phantasmo and Ren Narita. So there you go. More potential
Chaos Goblin ruining the day of El Phantasmo.
And next, Jake Lee and Evil. So his tour of the former members of LIJ continues before he goes up against the true ones. So Jake and Evil here. So another chance for Jake to get out of the gate well.
I remember when these two guys were a tag team in LIJ.
Jake Lee and Evil?
I was making a joke about Sonata.
He's the same guy. It's because Sonata's the same guy.
I'm sorry. Too deep.
Oh, that's all right. All right. Hiroki Goto and Yuya Uemura. This is the kind of match I'm talking about with Uemura. The result of this one isn't going to matter in the overall standings. What's going to matter is the match good? Does he actually show some charisma here? Does he get the crowd going? Does he get people behind him? Whether he's playing heel or babyface or that mix that New Japan does sometimes, where it doesn't have to be either one. But if this ends up as a thud, it's on Uemura. It's going to be blamed on Uemura far more than it's going to be blamed on Goto.
This is the ultimate mid-card match in New Japan right now. These guys are in a lot of the same position. Goto's on the way down and Uemura presumably is on the way up, but they should be beating the same guys and losing to the same guys, essentially on the card. So it'll be interesting to see where the valuation factor is in this G1. I kind of thought that Goto might end up losing to Uemura. I feel like this is just the kind of match that would raise Uemura's stock a little bit by beating a former tag champion. But who knows? Who knows? No,
this one could absolutely go either way. And then we have Umino and Takagi. And Shark mentions that Evil facing War Dogs on night 1 and 2 is interesting. That it is. Yeah, they're telling us something with some of I think there's going to be some more friction between House of Torture and the War Dogs as things move on. Shota Umino.
One and emphasize the other.
Shingo Takagi against Shota Umino. This should be an excellent match between two guys who are good workers and a guy who's on the come up with Shota Umino against one of the best in the world.
You know how I said that Goto and Uemura is a mid-card match? This is the upper mid-card version of the same match where it's like defining where they are on the card through this match. If I don't think Shingo loses to Shota Umino, that's where he is in terms of the hierarchy. I think Shingo is among the tippy top on the roster. So if there is a change in perception and Shota ends up winning this match, it's going to change how I look at Shota Umino in the long run, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and this is also, by the way, Phantasmo and Narita have faced each other before. That's 1-0 in favor of El Phantasmo, and then Shingo and Shota have also met before, so that's not a first for those two.
And Shingo won.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And after that, we
had
have
an interesting one.
Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. So again, this is if it goes to what we talked about earlier, Zack and where Naito can be, or Zack can beat Naito, and then Zack wins the G1, and they go into the Tokyo Dome saying, "I beat you the last time we wrestled each other." That's definitely an intriguing story, but that would also put Naito potentially 0-2, which is another New Japan trope of putting somebody that's a favorite behind the 8-ball. And but either way, this is going to be pretty interesting.
According to Flaming Shark, it's the Tokyo Dome main event. Hopefully.
I think it could very well be.
I have booked my entire G1 block around the idea that Zack Sabre Jr. and Naito are going to be the Wrestle Kingdom main event. Even this match, like I think they're going to a draw. I think that they're going to find a way to have an inconclusive finish. I don't think Naito should be losing this match, and I don't think Zack Sabre Jr. should be losing this match. I think there should be a race for dominance in this entire block, and these guys be a cut above everybody else. I just kind of think this will perpetuate that. This should perpetuate that these guys are racing for something.
This will be a great match. This will be the 12th singles meeting between the two. Naito leads 7-4 currently. And then finally, we have Yota Tsuji and David Finlay. So another match here that could have implications for later in the tournament. We supposed that Finlay might win this one and then later be beaten by Tsuji in the postseason play, thus setting up that wrong company, global title match between Finlay and Tsuji potentially down the road. That's where I see it. And but it'll be the main event in Osaka at Edion. Seems like a good place to put over the Bullet Club leader as somebody who is a serious threat in the tournament, ending the night with him on the microphone talking about how he's going to cruise through this tournament.
He is definitely a final boss in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's gonna be looking strong a lot of the way. And Tsuji has a lot more viability as an underdog, catching up in the block from a couple of losses out the gate than he does otherwise. So him losing to Finlay makes all the sense in the world at the beginning. And he lost to him a couple weeks ago, right? They had a match.
Yep, that's true. They have met before plenty of times. So well, not plenty of times, but a few times. And so that is night 2. So night 3, they're coming back Tuesday. We're not going to go through every single match on that one, but or at least not analyze it. But on Tuesday, they're going to be in Hiroshima. That's night 3. There is one B block match. And Chris touched on it, is that we do have Cobb and Takeshita, because Takeshita's got to go and work for DDT and be away. So the headliner in Hiroshima is Naito versus Jake Lee. And that's interesting that that's taking place in Hiroshima, isn't it? That's Naito's kind of second home outside of Tokyo, which is where he's from. But of course, they've been adopted by the Hiroshima Carp. It's kind of a home game for Naito, but he's facing Jake Lee there. The B block match I mentioned, Jeff Cobb against Takeshita, should be really good. We'll also see Sabre versus Newman and Umino versus Kidd as part of that card there. And then night 4 will be Thursday in Kagawa, and it's an all B block show. Uemura versus Takeshita, Henare versus Finlay, and Goto versus Bolton are the ones that kind of jumped out at me as what I'm looking forward to there. But of course, when we reconvene in a week, we will be talking about all of that stuff. 4 G1 shows. It's going to be fantastic.
Even at G1 season, and I'm here for it.
I know, I can't wait. And
but G1 season, we gotta touch on the things that happened before G1 season, so there's nothing in our way.
That's right. You talking about Fantasticomania?
I am talking about Fantasticomania.
You were there in person, Jeremy. Talk to us a little bit about what this was like. It was at Mount Pleasant High School gym, which is not a huge building, but about 900 people in attendance. Can you talk to us a little bit about the live experience there? What did you think?
It was every indie pro wrestling show at a high school that you've ever been to. The crowd was way more local than I thought it would be. It was not a CMLL crowd, and it was not primarily a New Japan crowd. There were a lot of people that's where they go to see their Lucha Libre wrestling in San Jose, California, and that's where the high school is. It's the local Lucha Libre home, as it were. Free parking, high school. Walked over 10 minutes, left my house, home in 10 minutes after the end of the main event. A lovely experience. There was no air conditioning in the building, and the amount of people chanting Mexico and Otra, 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 which is again in Spanish, permeated the entire arena. There was a lot of energy, and I don't know how it came off on screen. The crowd was happy to be there, and they were very familiar with the CMLL talent. Here for everything. The merch line was the lightest that I've ever seen, and I'm wearing something that I bought off of that merch line while I was watching
nice.
Yota Tsuji and Barbario Cavernario. Also a fantastic match. But it was exactly as I thought it was going to be. I told you it was going to be not looking great from a gym in San Jose, but it will be a lot of fun. And I will tell you this, Steven, as much as I was critical about the look and the feel and everything, I haven't had that much fun at a pro wrestling show in a really long time.
I'm glad you
enjoyed
it.
I had a great time.
It was a fun show to watch. You asked how the gym looked on the show. It was NJPW in the United States production, so it looked bad, and it was mic'd poorly. The announcers came. The first of all, they didn't have the volume right, and then for the Zack Sabre match, it went out for a lot of the match.
Who were the announcers?
It was Veda. I'm going to get the name. It was Veda. Veda handled the play-by-play, and Miguel Castro was there. And Miguel is not a seasoned broadcaster, but he knows a lot about CMLL. Veda carried most of the freight in this one. Did pretty good job. Veda knows.
They were not there in person, so I was curious about that.
Oh well, you sure?
I don't think they were. I didn't see it. There was not a whole lot of room.
I thought Veda and Miguel were there, but maybe I'm wrong.
I looked around. The room was not big, and unless they were by the front door across the stage, there was not a whole lot of places for them to sit and call this thing.
I thought they were up in the front row by the rail there, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I never saw them.
Well, we couldn't hear them for some of the times because it's NJPW in the United States and they don't produce it well.
Yeah.
So
So
it didn't sound great, didn't look great, but the matches, as far as the crowd goes and the building goes, the matches though were a lot of fun to watch. I did enjoy this show, and it opened up with a Copa Fantastica 4-way match. This was the DKC, Adrian Quest, Viento, and Kukui. And there's a 4-way where King of the Mountain style. So similar to what happens with Matt Vandegrift on the Strong shows, you win this one, you're guaranteed a spot on the next Fantastica Mania show in the US. And it was won by the DKC. He got the win. But I think a lot of people came out of this really enjoying what Viento and Kukui brought because they were kind of new and fresh faces. Kukui is an awfully big guy to be doing some of the jumps and dives he was doing, but it turned out pretty well. I was entertained by him. I enjoyed that part of it for sure. Did he come across to the live crowd the same way?
Kukui was a beast, man. Everybody loved him. I got a picture of him right here. He ended up reposting this, and he was like, yeah, man. He came out, and I was just like, "Oh my god, you're huge!" And he wasn't graceful, like he wasn't amazing, but he could move like a luchador, and he played his role just fine. But I was looking at him like, there was a part of me like I tried to describe him to people as a lucha version of Evil Uno, and I felt like that was pretty close to it, but I also felt like I was low-key insulting Kukui by saying that, and I didn't want to.
Understood. Well, it's I thought he did a good job, and fantastic costume, really good outfit. Yeah,
and great presence. They all had great presence.
USVA guy says, apologize for no air conditioning. We thought it was going to be available. The person who booked the venue knew this and did not let us know that. Well, that had to be an unpleasant surprise to show up.
I mean, it's okay. A lot of people know that you go to a high school gym. Yeah. Like, I don't think anyone who's been to that high school were going to be surprised about the scenario of that high school. And it's not a big deal for the 900 people. Like, to learn for next time. But I don't think anybody left as a result of the air conditioning. Like you just go outside, get a breath of fresh air, come right back in.
Up next, we had an MLW World Tag Team title match. So Cozy Max, which is Okamura and Satoshi Kojima, faced and defeated Magnus and Ruhido, 2 CMLL stars, just under 10 minutes. It was fine. Kojima handled most of it as far as that goes. He's a better worker than Okamura is, and just knows how to get himself over. He just doesn't matter what audience he's in front of. Kojima just is a classic pro wrestler who knows how to get himself over, and he did it here. The match was just fine. There wasn't anything spectacular about it. He ended up pinning Ruhido with the lariat and retaining the MLW tag titles.
Okamura busted himself up in some way. I didn't catch it, but from what you were saying of when it came off on camera, and it was perfectly fine, there was a lot of problems in this match off camera that I was noticing, and it wasn't very smooth in the live crowd, but I think everyone kind of knew that Magnus and Ruhido weren't going to win, even though the crowd was in love with them. They were chanting. This was the first time the Mexico chants and the Ultra chants and everything. These guys were the baby faces to the crowd, the CMLO guys, and that was a common trend through this whole thing.
What was the stuff going on out off camera?
Just Okamura wasn't in the position, and he was just looking rough and needing a little bit of help. And then some of the moves on the outside, timing wise, just they weren't hitting their cues as well as they could when it looked like in the ring. But if it came off better on TV, then maybe they were hitting their cues.
I think it came off
a little awkward.
I mean, it certainly wasn't a great match, but it was it was fine. Okamura got knocked in the nose. He had a bloody nose through a lot of it there, so that was.
And from that point on, he wasn't really a part of the match.
So, speaking of matches that didn't quite pan out, the CMLL World Women's Title match, a 3-way match with Willow Nightingale. Of course, this was changed last minute, but Willow Nightingale, Juvia, I guess is how it's officially pronounced, and Viva Van. Willow Nightingale ended up winning it. She won the CMLL World Women's titles. And after all, having an AEW talent hold other companies' titles always works out perfectly well. So why would we want to start learning lessons at this stage? So we'll just do that. And boy, this match had some rough moments. It was a rough night for Viva Van. It didn't go well for her. A lot of things didn't go well for her. I thought Willow carried it as best as she could. She ended up winning it with a Dr. Bomb. Juvia was okay, but this didn't really come together.
Match got over in the crowd on charisma alone. They loved Willow, and they saw her as a huge star coming into this. And I felt like it actually got people to the arena that, did not see Stephanie McCurr. Viva Van almost missed the count out 20 at the end of it, but I'm not exactly sure what would have happened.
She either missed or I was wondering the same thing. It's like, oh crap, what is she eliminated from the match? I mean, she made
it. She made it according to the look that I had in the 19 and the jump into the ring. But we all know that she was in there to eat the pin so that they could set up the singles match between Willow and Juvia. Whether it happens at a CMLL show or it happens at Capital Collision, who knows? I kind of think it'll probably be a CMLL thing, but a nice little consolation prize and a fun reception for Willow Nightingale. A lot of the crowd knew who she was and was absolutely here for her.
Hechicero and Virus were in the next match against TMDK, Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr. This is part of that whole thing where Zack is going around to everybody around the world, and which is another reason why I think he's a strong contender to win the G1. Like I said, showing him off. Zack and Hechicero were great in this match. I thought they were really good together. Long grappling sequence that I really enjoyed. And this is when the poor production hit again, as we lost the announcers through a lot of this one. Hechicero got a crucifix submission on Tito to win, so that sets him up as having the drop on Zack Sabre Jr. He beat Zack in Arena Mexico, but Zack's foot was under the bottom rope. They protected Zack in that match. Didn't have it be a clean finish. And this one, they had Zack out of the finish all along. But Hechicero now kind of has 2 in a row going into that Rev Pro match. And Zack Sabre facing Hechicero in England can kind of guess which way that one's going to go. So he's probably going to get that win back there. But entertaining stuff between Zack and Hechicero. And Tito's always fun to see. I don't say that with an ounce of sarcasm. I think Bad Dude Tito deserves to be in a much more prominent place than he is. I'm happy to see him anytime he's on one of these shows.
The 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning of this match with Zack Sabre Jr. and Hechicero was divine to watch live. I wasn't able to get good pictures of it because of the angle and the post. But when I was looking around the post and watching this thing, I was just like, this is everything I dreamed pro wrestling could be. And so fantastic stuff. I'm not sure, like, this is the match. I would tell you, you need to pay $20 to go out of your way to see this match. But if you wanted to see the Fantastica Mania card as a whole, this, along with everything else, would not let you down.
After that, we had Yota Tsuji and Barbaro Cavernario. Now, of course, these two know how to work each other from Tsuji's time in Mexico. But I thought this was interesting, Jeremy. This felt more like a strong style match than a Lucha Libre match in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Good wrestling, a lot of good chop battles, and it built to big moves and near falls. It just felt more like a New Japan match, even though both of them have CMLL experience. In fact, that's what Cavernario's almost entire career has been with CMLL. Barbaro was good at it. Cavernario was good at the strong style. I enjoyed this match a lot. Tsuji got out of some near falls, ended up hitting the Gene Blast to win. Similar to Zach, another reason I have Tsuji going to the finals is he's kind of been hit in these prominent spots around for other companies and things. But this match I could absolutely watch again. And seeing Cavernario work a more strong style thing, I wouldn't mind if he came back to New Japan for more than Fantastica Mania tour. I think this is a guy that's got real crossover appeal.
The one thing I noticed about this match that just surprised the heck out of me was how much they slowed it down, right? The beginning of the match. Everything was fast paced. We were less than 2 hours into the show when this match came in. We were 90 minutes in, and all of a sudden they're just like, you know what? We're just going to, pull back on the gas a little bit, hit the brake a little bit, and slow this thing down. And it really didn't get hot until about 10 minutes in when they took it outside and they went around the ring and did that. And then all of a sudden they picked up the pace. They did the normal match. But you're absolutely right. It wasn't a lucha style match in any way, shape, or form. They did strong style, but they also made sure to incorporate enough lucha to not lose the crowd. For a lot of people, it'd probably be their favorite match on the card. I liked it, but I'm not sure it was my favorite match on the card.
I think main event got me as being my favorite. But next up was the NJPW Strong Openweight title match. Ultimo Guerrero, the legend from Mexico, challenging Gabe Kidd for that title. It was all chops early in this one. A lot of chops. These two just chopped the living hell out of each other back and forth. Probably hurt Gabe more than it hurt Guerrero, and that's not a testament to their chops, but I'm pretty sure Guerrero has just kind of chopped the nerves out of his chest over the last 30 years. Just doesn't feel it the way you did when you were younger. But Kidd's selling and charisma is really good. When he sold Guerrero's chops, it looked like they hurt. They probably did. Kidd has what it takes to be a main event guy and a future faction leader for me. He has a very interesting dynamic in the ring, and his aggressive interactions with the crowd and things. I think it really works great as a heel. Guerrero is the nominal heel, but a legend that everybody loves. And that's true in Arena Mexico too. They don't really boo him so much anymore, a little bit, but it's almost playful booing. Like, yeah, you're our bad guy. Yeah. But he's still a pretty good worker. It reminds me a lot of Kojima, really, like CMLL's Satoshi Kojima, just a guy who's 50 years old, but can still go in there with a current main event guy and work really well. And this was fun. There was a low blow and a pile driver for the finish. It was only about 12 minutes or so, but I enjoyed watching it. And then afterwards, Kidd got on the microphone and challenged Leo Rush for the Washington, D.C. show, which is a pretty diametrically opposed opponent from Ultimo Guerrero, going from him to Leo Rush. But
could
Rush
not hear a word he said.
But you couldn't hear what Gabe was saying?
Couldn't hear a word he said. He just had that thing. And it was
oh, man.
I was like, come on, man. And I thankfully, the microphones picked it up for the announcement. I saw it on social media that it was Leo Rush. But
yeah, it sounded fine on the broadcast.
Your promo into a microphone. I would recommend not doing that.
It sounded fine on the broadcast. That's interesting.
Good. I couldn't.
But Leo's from the Washington, D.C. area, so it makes sense to have him in a big spot on that card.
So here's what the place looked like. I got a little video of Gabe Kidd if he decided to.
Oh yeah, he's right over by you.
Yeah. So literally a high school gym. You can see the dimensions here. We're at the back wall. You walk down. He's heading down, and you kind of start seeing the ring as he's making his way. Not a big venue.
I like all the sectional and regional title banners on the walls and everything. That's very
there
very
were
high
people that paid $200 to sit 5 feet closer than me on the bleachers for $30.
Oh yeah. Well, there are people that paid an extra $500 to sit a row in front of me too for Wrestle Kingdom. So I will try not to remind them.
If people are willing to pay the money, then God bless them.
And so I'm glad I'm 6 feet tall. I can just see over top of them. I'm fine. After that, we have the main event. It's Doki and Místico against Rocky Romero and Volador Jr. Rocky and Volador, of course, had the big feud in Mexico a while back. They are not okay with each other, and that was evident throughout the entire match. This was really fun. It was good stuff. Místico is so over. He is the
beloved.
Yeah, absolute top guy in Mexican wrestling right now, the Lucha Libre. Everyone got a little bit of shine in this one. There were fewer lucha dives in this show than you would normally see on a Fantastica Mania branded show just because of the tight quarters. You really couldn't do a whole lot off the ring posts and things. There just wasn't space. But there were some topes. We got some topes throughout. Romero and Volador did end up, just like we predicted, kind of crashing into each other and malfunctions at junctions, and ended up arguing with each other and hitting each other as much as teaming. And then Místico, of course, the ultimate babyface, he got his armbar on Rocky Romero, who was the only real heel in the match to win. Místico then said he wants a singles match with Doki, and I think that match will be great whenever it does happen. So that was how the night ended, with that to be continued.
There was a question here from Dunstan earlier that I think ties into this.
Okay.
Do you think they should have a title defense with one of the titles at the G1 final? They did it for the best of the Super Juniors. Do you think that they could do Místico versus Doki at the G1 final?
They could. I have a feeling that's going to be something that's done more over here at either a Strong Show or we could see it at Capital Collision. But I think that would probably be something that would be done over here more. But they absolutely could do it. I wouldn't argue that if they wanted to do that over there. And now that I think about it, the more the junior heavyweight title in Japan with Místico coming in, I would love that.
It'd be a lot of fun.
I think I changed my mind. I think I would like to see that one over in Japan. So I'm more than happy to have that one. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
All right, we got no time. Let's do some questions here. Does this feel like the most unpredictable G1 since 2019?
Yes. Yeah. How about that? I mean, we talked about that. Is that you could make the case for 5 different guys to win this thing and make an honest case of it. Now, some more likely than others, but I feel, like I said, I think I have a beat on it, and I think Zach's going to win. But whenever you talk about that thing with Shota Umino, you think, yeah, well, maybe. The whole idea of Shingo Takagi winning and then having that paranoia with an LIJ. Okay, maybe. Tsuji, same story, right? Tsuji actually overcomes and wins it. Yeah, okay, maybe. There are a lot of good choices here, and it does make this one feel more unpredictable to me.
I would say that I don't think the word is unpredictable. I think there is a traditional factor to this G1 that leads people to think the field is wide open. But I think with the way that the G1 has been set up the last couple of years, it may end up being that this is really predictable. It's very formulaic, but that you're so compelled by the things going on in it that you're looking past it. I just don't think that unpredictable is the right word. I think chaotic. I think there's a number of things, but with the way that the layout of 28 and 32, I just can't say it's the most unpredictable.
Well, and he's only asking about most unpredictable since 2019. Remember, last year was almost guaranteed to be Tetsuya Naito. We'd have been astonished if Naito didn't win. There are several guys that we wouldn't be astonished if they won this year. So it's certainly certainly less predictable than last year.
If you had to pick 2 young guys to be in the finals, who would it be?
Umino and Tsuji. If you have to pick 2 young guys to be in the finals, those are the 2 from the Reiwa 4 that I would pick. If it has to be 2 young guys, I don't think Newman is quite at that spot as a star yet, and I don't think Oleg is there as a worker yet to carry all that. So with Narita still dealing with the House of Torture affiliation. And then you also have Uemura not being quite there this year. If you're going to have two young guys in the finals, quote unquote young guys, I know that's subjective, but that would be my pick, as Shota and Tsuji feel like the two most ready.
All right. Between Callum and Bolton, which one will have a better chance to beat a champion of the G1?
Bolton, because I think we both predicted that he's going to beat a champion in the G1. I think we both predicted that he's going to beat Cobb. Newman, his story could be how he does something in some way to keep Naito from getting all the way through the way he wants to, or maybe, losing that bye or something. So could very well be Callum. But as far as beating a champion and that leading to something, I would feel that it's probably Bolton.
All right. So Flaming Shark had a couple of comments at the very end about young guys. Umino, Tsuji, Shingo. No, that's a different one. The G1 should be really good. All the ingredients are here for the best G1 since 2019, hopefully. Young guys could be Gabe Kidd and Yota Tsuji.
Yeah,
and Umino Tsuji is actually a real possibility.
Yeah, Gabe Kidd is a wild card, not a bad point. Yeah, but again, we're looking at a guy who could potentially main event the Tokyo Dome. Gabe, 2025 feels like that's more of a possibility.
Yes. Any other questions from the peanut gallery? We'll give you a couple more minutes while we do our little spiel.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll find it real quick.
We're going to be...
we are members of the Fight Game Media Network. You can find a collection of all of our shows on all audio podcast catchers, with shows that include The Wrap, The Dynamite Show, The 5-Star Joshi Show, Popcorn and Pile Drivers, and various newsworthy pay-per-views and PLE recaps from WWE, AEW, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, as we're going to bring you plenty of G1 coverage coming up. If you can, please like and give us 5 stars to increase our presence in audio and video. In addition to that video, we have this YouTube channel that succeeds more and more from the feedback you provide. So if you like what we do here live, I'm speaking of Strong Style every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Power Bomb shows every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, the Dynamite Show 20 minutes after every AEW Dynamite, 5-Star Joshi Show from Scott E. Wrestling featuring Marigold and Stardom comment, and live presentations of pay-per-view recaps. You can subscribe if you're listening for the first time, or just hit that like button for the show to pop up again until you're sure we're the team for you. We thank you for every minute you spent with us, including the extra minutes you spent with us today. And we hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoy the time with you. Steven, our live read is over and it's back to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing that. And we got a couple other things here. USVA guy wanted to mention something. Just a little announcement. Keep an eye over the next 3 months on the Fan Club and New Japan of America Twitter. We're going to have things planned for Wrestle Kingdom in Tokyo Dome City. Ooh, all right. Well, I'll see you there. I'm going. I can't believe it. I'm going to friggin' go. Apparently I'm flying out on the 2nd, which means I should be there in time for the 3rd. My goal here is to see the Stardom show on the 3rd, see any afternoon shows that I can on the 4th, and then pack in whatever I can else on the 5th.
How many days are you actually in Japan?
Not very many this time. We're going to go back for 2 weeks in next May. So I'm actually have 2 trips next year. So I'm going alone. This is just my birthday gift from Ginger, who's an amazing woman and knows that this is kind of a dream come true for me. So I am going out there. I'll be there the 3rd through the 6th. I'm flying home the 7th. So if I can get into Dash, which is probably going to be a harder ticket than Kingdom because of the size of the building, I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try. But that's a challenging ticket to get. Sometimes it's a lot tougher than Kingdom. That one sells out. But I'm going to try to get to the start.
We've all decided that we're going to do the show with him in Japan and me here, and we'll figure it out. But we will not pass up that opportunity, everybody. We'll be doing some live shows.
And he has this. Colin mentions this too. He says, Onosato isn't winning this basho, is he? It's not over yet. Onosato off to a rough start. But with Hoshoryu still looking good, and now Teruno Fuji, the Yokozuna, back and at least not injured yet. It's a much more uphill climb than the last basho was for my guy Onosato there. So we'll see how it goes, though. You never know. He might go on a run. All right.
So, we got anything else? You never know who's going to pop up on this show in the next couple of weeks. We're still working on a guy here or there, a gal here or there that might have some insights on the G1. So we are a show to follow throughout the entire G1. We'll keep you posted on what we think is going to happen, what we were wrong on, what we were right on, what you were wrong on, what you were right on. We're just going to talk all G1 for the next 6 weeks to the point we're going to be ready for next year. So, Stephen, why don't you finish it up for us?
All right. Make sure you join us next Thursday we'll be back to talk about the first 4 events. We'll have 4 G1 nights to talk about. It's going to be so great. So with that in mind, we thank you very much for spending your time with us today, whether you were listening, whether you were watching. We're very grateful that you decided to spend a couple hours with us as we broke down this G1 tournament. So for Jeremy Feinstone, I'm Stephen Conway. We will see you next week at our regular time. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. We'll talk to you again real soon.